Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the Shire, there's a hobbit who sits by Bywater Pool every morning to watch the birds. Except the birds have started doing something strange. They freeze mid-flight. Time skips forward in chunks he can't account for. And he's just realised he's been sitting on the same bench for what he thought was an hour. But the sun has moved from dawn to dusk, and he has no memory of the time between. Welcome, friend. You've wandered into another quiet corner of Middle-earth, where the extraordinary hides within the ordinary rhythms of daily life. Tonight we're settling into the worn wooden bench beside Bywater Pool, where a hobbit named Merrimus Took has been watching birds for 43 years, or at least he thinks it's been 43 years. Lately, time has been doing peculiar things around him, and the birds seem to know something he doesn't. Here, in the gentle green hills of the Shire, where nothing exciting is supposed to happen, we'll discover that sometimes the most profound mysteries reveal themselves in the spaces between heartbeats, in the gaps where time should be, but isn't. So before you settle onto this bench beside Merrimus, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, so we can keep bringing you more tales from the quiet corners of extraordinary places. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight. It's always good to know who's keeping me company during these long, strange watches. Now get comfortable. Let the gentle sounds of the Shire surround you, and allow the slow, uncertain passage of time to guide you gently toward rest. You arrive at the bench beside Bywater Pool at what you believe is 6:47 in the morning, just as you've done every day for 43 years. The walk from your hobbit hole takes exactly 14 minutes if you don't stop to examine interesting mushrooms or chat with neighbours, and you've learned to leave at 6:33 to arrive at precisely the right moment, when the dawn chorus reaches its peak complexity. The bench is yours, in the unspoken way that things belong to hobbits, who've claimed them through decades of consistent use. It sits at the eastern edge of the pool, positioned to catch the morning sun as it rises over the water and illuminates the reeds where the moorhens nest. The wood is smooth from years of your sitting, worn into a comfortable contour that matches your particular hobbit proportions. There's a knot in the wood near the left armrest that you've traced with your finger thousands of times while watching the sky. Your notebook rests in your lap, a leather-bound journal with pages filled with careful observations written in your neat, precise handwriting. The pages are organised by date, then by species, then by behaviour. 43 years of data, 43 years of patient watching, 43 years of recording the movements and habits of the birds that make their homes around Bywater Pool. Today's page is already labelled at the top, 4th of Rata, 1420 Shire Reckoning. Morning observations. Weather, clear, slight mist on the water. Temperature, cool but warming. Wind, light from the west. The dawn chorus is in full voice this morning. You can identify 17 distinct species without even raising your binoculars. The song thrush in the willow tree, repeating each phrase 3 times as song thrushes do. The robin defending its territory with aggressive melodic warnings. The blackbird with its fluting voice, the one you've been tracking for 3 years based on a distinctive pattern in its song. The wrens and the tits and the finches, all layering their voices into the complex auditory tapestry that makes dawn the best time for birdwatching. You raise your binoculars, old brass ones that belong to your grandfather, still perfectly functional despite their age, and scan the reeds. There's a pair of moorhens there, the same pair that's nested in that location for the past 4 years. You've watched them raise 12 clutches of chicks, documented the success rate of each nesting attempt, noted the seasonal variations in their breeding behaviour. The male moorhen emerges from the reeds, moving with that distinctive head-bobbing walk that moorhens use. You make a note. 6:47, male moorhen, mature, foraging at northeast reed edge. Behaviour normal. You're watching the moorhen when the first strange thing happens. The bird stops. Not the normal kind of stopping, where a bird pauses between movements or freezes in response to a potential threat. This is different. The moorhen is mid-stride, 1 foot raised, head extended forward, and it simply stops, completely motionless, as if someone has paused time itself but forgotten to pause you along with it. You lower your binoculars and look around. The other birds have stopped too. The song thrush is frozen mid-trill, its beak open, caught in the act of singing. The robin is suspended in mid-hop. A swift you hadn't even noticed. The swift hangs motionless in the air above the pool, its wings spread in the precise geometry of flight but completely still, defying gravity and physics and everything you understand about how birds move through the world. The silence is profound. The dawn chorus has simply stopped. Not faded, not quieted gradually, but stopped, as if someone has closed a door between you and the sound. You can hear your own breathing, the rustle of your clothing as you shift on the bench, but nothing else. No bird calls, no wind in the trees, no water lapping at the shore of the pool. You sit very still, your heart beating faster, trying to understand what you're seeing. In 43 years of watching birds, you've never seen anything like this. Birds don't freeze in mid-air. Birds don't all stop moving simultaneously. This violates everything you know about ornithology, about biology, about the basic physics of the world. You glance down at your pocket watch, a silver timepiece that belonged to your father, kept accurate to within a minute per week through careful winding. The second hand is moving normally, ticking forward with a mechanical precision. Time hasn't stopped. The watch confirms it. 11 seconds pass while you stare at the frozen tableau before you. Then between one heartbeat and the next, everything moves again. The moorhen completes its step, as if nothing unusual has happened. The song thrush finishes its interrupted trill. The robin lands from its frozen hop. The swift swoops down toward the water, its flight path continuing seamlessly from where it had impossibly paused. The dawn chorus resumes at full volume, all 17 species singing exactly as they had been before the inexplicable pause. You blink rapidly, trying to convince yourself that you imagined it. Perhaps you dozed off for a moment, had a micro-sleep. But no, you were fully awake, fully aware, watching it happen. And the watch confirms that only 11 seconds passed, not enough time for sleep, not enough time for anything except what you observed. The impossible stopping and starting of time itself. You write in your notebook with slightly shaking hands. 6:47. All birds ceased movement simultaneously for approximately 11 seconds. Complete stillness mid-action. Then resumed as if no interruption occurred. No obvious environmental cause. No apparent distress in subjects after resumption of movement. You underline 11 seconds twice, pressing hard enough that the pencil leaves an impression on the pages beneath. The birds continue their morning routines, apparently unconcerned by what just happened. The moorhens forage. The thrush sings. The swift hunts insects above the water. Everything is normal again, exactly as it should be on an ordinary morning in the Shire. But you know what you saw. You know what happened, even if you can't explain it. You spend the next hour watching with heightened attention, documenting every bird movement with more detail than usual, alert for any sign that the strange pause might happen again. But the morning proceeds normally. Species arrive and depart according to their usual patterns. The sun climbs higher, burning off the mist on the water. The temperature rises into comfortable ranges. At 8:15, you glance at your pocket watch to note the time of a particularly interesting interaction between two robins establishing territorial boundaries. The watch reads 8:15. You watch the territorial display, which takes approximately 3 minutes based on your experience observing such interactions. You look down to record the observation and note the end time. The watch reads 11:42. You stare at the watch face, certain you must be misreading it. But no, the hour hand is clearly pointing between 11 and 12. The minute hand is clearly at 42. 3 hours and 27 minutes have passed during what you experienced as 3 minutes of watching robins. You look up at the sun. It's directly overhead, confirming the watch's testimony. It's midday. The morning has vanished, gone without you experiencing it, slipped away in what felt like moments, but consumed hours of time you cannot account for. Your hands are shaking now, and not slightly. You flip back through your notebook, looking at your entries. The last one reads, 8:15, 2 robins, territorial display, northeast corner of pool. Standard aggressive posturing, no physical contact. Nothing between 8:15 and now. No observations, no notes, no record of the 3.5 hours that have somehow passed without your awareness. You look around the pool, trying to find evidence of what happened during the missing time. The bench beneath you is still in morning shadow. No, wait, it's not. The shadow has moved, rotated around you, as the sun climbed and passed overhead. Your notebook is resting in a different position on your lap than you remember placing it. There's a small leaf on your shoulder that wasn't there before. The birds have changed. Their patterns. The dawn chorus species have been replaced by midday species. A kingfisher sits on a low branch. You would have noted a kingfisher arrival. You always note kingfisher arrivals. They're uncommon enough to be significant. But you have no memory of seeing it arrive, no record of when it appeared. 3.5 hours, gone, experienced as 3 minutes. You write carefully, trying to keep your handwriting steady. 11:42, experienced significant time discontinuity. Remember watching robins at 8:15? Next conscious awareness shows 11:42, missing approximately 3.5 hours, with no memory of interval. Sun position confirms time passage. Bird species composition has changed to match midday patterns. No memory of transition. You underline missing approximately 3.5 hours 3 times. The rational part of your mind, the part that's kept meticulous records for 43 years, that's organised data into tables and charts, that's approached birdwatching with scientific precision, is struggling to process what's happening. Time doesn't skip. Memory doesn't just stop recording for hours at a time. Birds don't freeze mid-flight. But another part of your mind, the part that grew up hearing stories of the strange things that happen in Middle-earth, the part that knows the Shire exists in a world where wizards are real, and elves walk in forests, and great eagles speak in human tongues, that part isn't entirely surprised. Disturbed, yes. Frightened, perhaps. But not surprised. Because you've been noticing smaller things for weeks now, haven't you? Little inconsistencies that you've been dismissing as moments of inattention or fatigue. Times when you looked away from the pool for what felt like seconds and looked back to find the light had changed, more than seconds could account for. Mornings when you arrived at the bench feeling like you'd just left your Hobbit hole, but found your tea flask already half empty, suggesting you'd been drinking from it during a journey you didn't quite remember. You've been losing time in small increments and you've been ignoring it, explaining it away, refusing to acknowledge that something impossible was happening. But now the impossible has become undeniable. You sit on the bench, your notebook in your lap, surrounded by birds going about their ordinary business, while you try to understand what's happening to your experience of time itself. The kingfisher dives suddenly, emerging from the water with a small fish in its beak. You should note this. You should record the successful hunting behaviour, document the time and location and species of prey. But your hand is shaking too much to write clearly, and besides, you're no longer certain what time it actually is. The watch says 11:47 now, 5 minutes having passed while you sat trying to process the missing hours. But did 5 minutes actually pass? Or did you lose more time without noticing? How can you trust your perception of duration when hours can, seconds and minutes and hours? But the sun is unmistakably low on the western horizon, painting the sky with the oranges and purples of evening. The birds are singing evening songs, the robin's territorial defence call, the thrush's vespers melody, the sound of birds settling into roosting positions for the approaching night. You've lost the entire day, from mid-morning to evening, gone in what your consciousness experienced as 4 minutes of sitting on a bench trying to understand lost time. You sit back down, slowly, because your legs suddenly feel unreliable. The notebook opens again under your trembling hands. You write, evening, Time unknown, watch reads 11:51, but sun position indicates approximately 18:30. Lost entire day. Remember sitting at 11:42 trying to process missing morning hours. Next, conscious awareness shows evening. Total missing time now approximately 9 to 10 hours. Unable to trust perception of duration. Unable to trust mechanical time measurement. Birds behaving. Normally for evening period. I am sitting on bench. Sun is setting. I do not understand what is happening to me. The last sentence you write larger than the others, pressing hard enough that the pencil nearly tears the paper. I do not understand what is happening to me. The kingfisher has been replaced by a heron at the water's edge. When did the heron arrive? You always note heron arrivals. They're your favourite species, elegant and patient, and you've documented the fishing behaviours of the bywater pool herons for 17 years. But you have no memory of this one arriving, no record of its appearance. The evening deepens. The birds quiet gradually as darkness approaches. You sit on your bench, your notebook open to a page that documents your confusion and fear more than it documents birds. 43 years of careful observation, 43 years of scientific precision, and now you're writing sentences like, I do not understand what is happening to me, in increasingly around you, and you're powerless to stop it, powerless to even properly observe it happening. You're a birdwatcher losing the ability to watch, a recorder losing the ability to document, a hobbit losing his grip on the basic passage of moments into minutes, into hours. The night is deep and quiet. The pool reflects starlight, and you sit on your bench, aware that morning will come eventually, aware that you'll probably experience it as an instant transition from midnight to dawn, aware that there's nothing you can do except keep sitting, keep trying to stay present, keep failing to hold on to time as it slips away, in chunks you cannot account for. The notebook rests in your lap, open to a page of desperate observations about lost hours and frozen birds. And somewhere in the darkness, you hear the sound of wings, not the wings of ordinary birds, but something larger, something that shouldn't exist in the quiet corner of the Shire where you've watched ordinary birds for 43 years, but you can't see what's making the sound because your eyes have closed without you deciding to close them. And when they open again, it's morning, and you have no memory of the night, and your watch still reads 11:58, and the birds have frozen again, hanging motionless in the golden light of dawn. You look down at your notebook, trying to ground yourself in something concrete, something real. The leather is familiar against your palms, worn smooth from years of handling. This notebook is the third volume in your series of observations. The first covered your initial 15 years of watching, the second another 16 years, and this one began 2 years ago when you started the third volume with fresh optimism about documenting the changing populations around Bywater Pool. But the page you remember opening, the page where you wrote, I do not understand what is happening to me, is not the last page with writing on it. There are 3 more pages of observations after that. Desperate sentence, 3 pages in your handwriting, documenting birds and behaviours, and times with the same precise notation you've used for 43 years. But you have no memory of writing these observations. None at all. You read slowly, trying to understand. 1947, male tawny owl, mature, perched in ash tree south of pool. Hunting position, called 4 times in 10 minutes, wind from NW. 2015, nightjar, possibly same individual observed last spring, based on vocalization pattern. Churring from heath, approximately 200 metres northeast. Temperature dropping. 21:33, barn owl hunting over Eastfield. 3 successful strikes observed. Prey appeared to be field voles based on size and flight return pattern. On and on through the night, documented in your precise handwriting, observations that would have required you to be alert, focused, using your binoculars and your experience to identify species in darkness. professional quality observations. Your observations in every technical sense, but you remember none of it. The pages might as well have been written by someone else, except the handwriting is unmistakably yours. You recognize your characteristic way of forming the capital M in male, the slight rightward lean of your script, the way you abbreviate approximately as approx with that particular flourish. The last entry on the third page reads 04:17, pre-dawn, multiple robin songs beginning, sky clear, stars visible, watch still shows 11:58, stopped or broken, unable to determine actual time except by star positions and bird behaviour. Something is very wrong with time around the pool. The birds know. They stop when it breaks. I think I stop too, but keep observing somehow. Must find way to stay conscious through the breaks. You stare at that entry for a long time. The handwriting is shakier than the earlier entries, the script wandering slightly from the ruled lines of the page. This was written by someone frightened, someone confused, absolutely no memory of experiencing. You flip through these missing days, reading observations that you apparently made while not quite present. 5th of Retha, 06:52. The freezing happened again. Duration, 34 seconds this time. All birds motionless. When movement resumed, 3 hours had passed in what felt like 34 seconds. I think time is compressing around me, or expanding, or breaking in ways I don't have words for. 5th of Ratha, 14:21. Lost morning again. Watch still stopped at 11:58, using sun position to estimate time. Kingfisher arrived at approx. 13 Hoyort by sun. Caught 7 fish in 45 minutes of observation. I remember none of this, but the entry is here in my handwriting. 6th of Retha, 07:15. Did not go home yesterday. Spent night on bench. Have entries for overnight observations, but no memory of staying. No memory of cold, no memory of anything. Found my tea flask empty, but don't remember drinking. The missing time is getting longer. The freezes are getting longer. 89 seconds this morning. During freeze saw something moving near the shore. Large, wrong shape for any bird I know, but when movement resumed, nothing there. You stop reading, your hands trembling again. Whatever is happening, it's been happening for at least 3 days, possibly longer. You've been losing time, losing memory, but continuing to observe and document birds even while not fully conscious, even while experiencing some fractured version of reality where hours compress into seconds and days vanish into gaps you cannot recall. And something is appearing during the freezes, something large, wrong-shaped, something that shouldn't be here beside a peaceful Hobbit pool in the Shire. You look up from the notebook scanning the area around Bywater Pool. The morning light is stronger now. It must be near 8 by the sun's position, though your watch remains stubbornly stuck at 11:58. The birds are moving normally, foraging and singing and going about their ordinary business. The moorhens in the reeds, the thrush in the willow, the robin defending its territory. Everything looks exactly as it should on an ordinary morning. But you know it's not ordinary. You know that at any moment, everything might freeze again, and you might lose minutes or hours or days without experiencing them, emerging confused on the other side, with a notebook full of observations you don't remember making. You turn to a fresh page and write very carefully, pressing hard to make the letters clear. If I am reading this later with no memory of writing it, something is wrong with time at Bywater Pool. You're experiencing discontinuities, freezes followed by jumps forward. You continue observing and recording even during periods you don't consciously remember. Do not trust your sense of time passing. Do not trust the watch. It stopped at 11:58. You have been on this bench for at least 3 days with minimal memory of the experience. Something appears during the freezes. Stay alert. Try to observe it. We need to understand what is happening. You sign it with your own name, a message from your present self to your future self who might not remember receiving it. It feels absurd writing notes to yourself as if you're a stranger, but the evidence is clear. You've been doing exactly that, leaving observations and warnings that your future self needs, because your future self has no memory of your present experience. The absurdity of the situation would be funny if it weren't so frightening. A sound draws your attention, a soft splashing from the reeds. You raise your binoculars automatically, the movement instinctive after 43 years of responding to any indication of bird activity. The male moorhen is moving through shallow water, foraging among the reed roots, perfectly normal behaviour. You track him through the binoculars, noting his movements, preparing to record the observation. And then he stops, mid-step, mid-movement, frozen exactly as before. You lower the binoculars quickly, looking around. All the birds have stopped again, the song thrush silent mid-trill, the robin suspended mid-hop. A flock of starlings that you hadn't noticed earlier hangs motionless in the sky above the pool. Dozens of birds frozen in the precise formation of a murmurating flock, each individual bird perfectly still in a pattern that should be constantly flowing and shifting. The silence is absolute. Even your own breathing seems muted, as if the air itself has become thicker, more resistant to sound. You check your pocket watch. Still 11:58, useless for measuring anything. But you count in your head, trying to time this freeze. 1001, 1002, 1003. At 1017, you see it, movement along the shoreline, where nothing should be moving because everything is frozen. Something large is emerging from the water. No, not emerging. It was always there. You just couldn't see it until everything else stopped. It's the wrong colour for the landscape. Too dark, too textured, like shadow given weight and form. You can't quite focus on it. Your eyes slide away whenever you try to look directly at it, as if your vision refuses to properly process what you're seeing. It's bird-shaped roughly. 2 legs, a body, something that might be wings, but the proportions are all wrong. Too tall, too angular, moving in a way that doesn't match how birds move, how anything you've ever observed moves. It's walking along the shore, each step deliberate and slow, its head turning back and forth as if searching for something, looking for something, looking for... It turns its head in your direction, and you realise with absolute certainty that it's looking at you, specifically you, the only thing moving in this frozen world beside itself. You can't see its eyes, if it has eyes, but you feel its attention focus on you with an almost physical pressure. Your hand is frozen in the act of reaching for your notebook to write down the observation, and you can't move, can't even breathe properly, just sit paralysed while this impossible thing studies you from across 40 metres of frozen space. It takes a step toward you, then another. It's approaching slowly, deliberately, and you can't run, can't move, can only sit on your bench while your heart pounds, and your lungs struggle to pull air through the too thick atmosphere of frozen time. At 1043, everything moves again. The birds resume their songs and flights mid-action. The starling flock flows back into motion, their murmuration continuing seamlessly from where it paused. The moorhen completes his interrupted step, and the thing on the shoreline is gone, vanished instantly when time resumed, as if it exists only in the gaps between moments, in the spaces where time has broken. You sit gasping, your heart racing, your hands shaking so badly that you drop your notebook. It lands in the grass beside the bench with a soft thump, pages splaying open to reveal your desperate messages to yourself. You saw it. You actually saw it this time, conscious and aware, seeing the thing that appears when time breaks. The thing that your previous self warned about in notes you didn't remember writing. The thing that has apparently been appearing during these freezes for days while you observed, without quite remembering. You need to document this. You need to write down exactly what you saw while the memory is fresh. But when you bend to pick up the notebook, you find that someone has already documented it. There, on the page that was blank a moment ago, written in your handwriting but in shaky, frightened script. 8:23, estimated by sun, freeze duration 43 seconds. It appeared during freeze. Large, bird-shaped but wrong proportions. Dark colouring, texture like shadow. Moves during freezes when everything else is still. Came toward me. Disappeared when time resumed. This is the third sighting during conscious freeze. It's looking for something. I think it might be looking for me. But you just picked up the notebook. The page was blank. You're certain the page was blank? You saw it lying open in the grass with blank pages showing. Now it's filled with handwriting that matches yours perfectly, describing exactly what you just experienced. Time stamped to a moment you were living through, but somehow also not living through. Living through twice somehow, once consciously, and once while writing observations you don't remember recording. You flip forward through the notebook with increasing panic. More pages, more entries, all in your handwriting, all describing events that are happening now, or about to happen, or have just happened. You can't even tell anymore. 8:31, freeze duration, 18 seconds. It appeared farther up the shore, near the old boat dock, watching me, always watching. The birds know about it. They freeze when it comes. Do I freeze too? Am I writing this while frozen? How am I writing if I'm frozen? 8:45, no freeze for 14 minutes. Longest gap today. Tried to leave bench but legs won't obey properly. Something wants me to stay. Keep watching. Keep recording. Why am I recording things I haven't seen yet? 9:03, it spoke. During the freeze it made a sound. Not bird sound. Not any sound I know. The sound existed outside the frozen time. Existed in some space where sound can still move, even when everything else has stopped. It said, the entry ends there, mid-sentence, the handwriting trailing off into a scribble, and then nothing. The rest of the page is blank. The pages after are blank. You've reached the end of the pre-written observations, the end of the you from the future's ability to warn you from the past about what's coming. You're on your own now, in a present moment that you're actually experiencing, sitting on a bench beside a pool where time breaks and impossible things appear in the gaps in your own handwriting, documents, events before you. Consciously experience them. You should run. You should drop the notebook and run back to your hobbit hole and lock the door and never come back to Bywater Pool again. Let someone else watch the birds. Let someone else sit on this bench. Let someone else deal with whatever is breaking time and appearing in the spaces between moments. But you don't run. Your legs won't obey the command to stand. Just as your future self predicted, they wouldn't. Something is keeping you here. Some force or compulsion or simple inability to leave this spot where you've sat every morning for 43 years. The birds continue their morning songs. The sun continues its climb across the sky. Everything appears normal, except that you're trapped on a bench writing observations, in a notebook that sometimes records things before they happen, watching for freezes in time that allow impossible bird things to appear and approach you with purposes you cannot guess. The morning should be peaceful. The Shire is supposed to be safe. Nothing dangerous happens here. That's the whole point of the Shire. It's the place in Middle-earth where hobbits can live quiet lives, watching birds, keeping records, growing vegetables, smoking pipes, existing in gentle uneventfulness. But something has found its way to Bywater Pool, something that exists in the cracks of time, that appears when the world freezes, that's been approaching you day by day, freeze by freeze, while you watch without quite remembering watching. And your future self tried to warn you about it, tried to document it, managed to write several pages of observations before the handwriting cut off mid-sentence with that unfinished warning. It said, what did it say? What does a thing made of shadow and wrong angles say when it finally gets close enough to speak? And why did your future self stop writing before finishing that sentence? You sit on your bench, notebook in your lap, binoculars around your neck, surrounded by ordinary birds, living ordinary lives. You sit and wait for the next freeze, the next gap in time, the next appearance of the thing that's been hunting or seeking or approaching you through the broken moments of the past 3 days. The watch in your pocket still reads 11:58. Time has stopped for you in some fundamental way, even as it continues moving for the birds and the sun and the rest of the world. You've become unstuck from the proper flow of moments into minutes, into hours, trapped instead in a spiral of fractured experiences and lost memories and observations that exist before you observe them. 43 years of careful bird watching, and now you're watching something else, something that watches you back, something that moves between the seconds, that exists in the spaces where time has broken, that approaches slowly but inevitably toward whatever purpose brought it to this quiet pool in the peaceful Shire. The morning light is beautiful on the water. The moorhens are beautiful as they forage in the reeds. The thrush's song is beautiful in the willow branches. Everything is beautiful and ordinary and completely wrong. And you sit paralysed on your bench, waiting for the world to freeze again, waiting to see what approaches in the silence, waiting to learn what message your future self couldn't finish writing. It said, what did it say? What terrible or wonderful or impossible thing did the shadow bird say during a freeze that your future self experienced, but you have yet to encounter? You'll find out soon enough. The gaps between freezes are shortening. 17 seconds until the next one, according to observations you haven't made yet, but that are already written in your notebook, 3 pages ahead of where you're currently reading. You flip forward carefully. Yes, there it is. 9:17, freeze incoming. Can feel it building. Air pressure changing. Birds acting restless. 17 seconds until... The entry stops there. You flip back to the blank current page, pencil ready, determined to write what happens as it happens, to create the observations your future self has already recorded, to close the loop of pre-written documentation. You check the sun's position, approximately 9:16 now, give or take a few minutes, which means you have less than a minute before the next freeze, before the shadow bird appears again, before the world stops, and in the perfect silence of frozen time, you hear it speak. The voice isn't sound, not exactly. It's more like the memory of sound, or the idea of sound, translated into something your mind can process even though no air is vibrating to carry it. It exists in the space between your ears and your brain, in that mysterious realm where perception becomes experience. It says, "You are the one who watches." The words are in Western, the common speech of Middle-earth, but with an accent you can't place, an intonation that suggests the speaker learned the language from someone or something that didn't quite understand how living creatures shape words with breath and tongue. You can't move your head to look around for the source of the voice. You're frozen like everything else, paralysed in the act of sitting on your bench with your pencil hovering over a blank page. But your eyes still work somehow, and you can shift your gaze slightly. The shadow bird is standing at the edge of the pool, perhaps 20 meters away now, closer than before. It's more visible now, more solid, as if it's gaining substance with each freeze, with each gap in time that allows it to move, while everything else is still. It looks like a heron, you realise. Not a perfect heron. The proportions are wrong. The angle's too sharp. The movement's too deliberate. But it's heron-shaped, heron-sized, with the long legs and long neck and sharp beak that characterise the species you've watched and documented for 17 years. Except herons aren't made of shadow. Herons don't exist in the gaps between moments. And herons definitely don't speak Westron with impossible voices that bypass air and sound and physical reality. You have been watching for 43 years, the shadow heron says. Its beak doesn't move when it speaks. The words simply appear in your mind, carried on that not quite sound that exists outside the frozen moment. Always watching, always recording, never intervening, never participating, only observing. You can't respond. Your throat is frozen. Your breath stopped mid-inhalation. Your voice trapped somewhere between intention and action. All you can do is listen while this impossible thing speaks to you across 20 meters of frozen space. Time breaks around observers, the shadow heron continues. It takes a step closer, moving with that wrong fluidity that doesn't match how real birds move. The more you watch, the more you stand outside the flow of moments, the more you create gaps. Cracks, spaces where time moves differently or stops moving at all. You have been creating these gaps for years, observer. You have been breaking time with your watching, and you never noticed. This can't be true. You've just been bird watching, just sitting on a bench, looking through binoculars, writing notes, normal, harmless activity that thousands of people across Middle-earth do every day. How could that break time? How could simple observation create gaps in reality? But even as you mentally protest, part of you recognizes the truth in what the shadow heron is saying. Haven't you noticed over the years how time sometimes seemed to move strangely when you were deep in observation? How you'd look up from watching a particular behaviour and find that more time had passed than you expected? How the world sometimes seemed to pause when you were focused intently on a specific detail? You thought that was just the normal distortion of time perception that happens during focused attention. You thought it was psychological, not literal. You thought you were outside the world, the shadow heron says, somehow hearing your thoughts, or simply understanding what you must be thinking. You thought you could watch without affecting, observe without participating, record without changing. But observation is participation, watcher. The eye that sees becomes part of what is seen. The mind that records becomes woven into what is recorded. It's closer now. 15 meters maybe. You can see more detail in its form, the texture of its feathers. It has feathers, impossible shadow feathers that seem to absorb light rather than reflect it. The sharp intelligence in its eyes. It has eyes dark and deep and ancient beyond measure. For 43 years, you have been pulling yourself slightly outside the normal flow of time, it explains. Each morning, you sit and watch and record, and each morning you detach yourself just a little more from the present moment. The gaps became wider, the cracks became deeper, and eventually they became large enough for me to notice, large enough for me to enter, large enough for me to exist in the spaces between your moments of observation. You want to ask what it is. You want to ask where it came from. You want to ask what it wants with you. But your voice is still frozen, your breath still stopped, your body still locked in that moment between seconds. I am what watches the watchers, the shadow heron says, answering your unspoken questions. I am what exists in the gaps that observers create. I have always existed in some sense. Wherever someone stands outside time to watch time passing, I am there. Wherever someone observes without being observed, I am the one who observes them. I am the completion of the loop, watcher. I am what makes your watching part of the world instead of separate from it. 10 meters away now, you can feel its presence like a weight in the frozen air, like a pressure against your mind. It's not threatening exactly, not malevolent, just vast and strange and utterly beyond your Hobbit understanding of how reality should function. The freezing will get worse, it tells you. Its voice in your mind sounds almost apologetic. The longer you watch, the more time breaks around you. Eventually, the gaps will last longer than the moments between them. Eventually, you will exist more in the frozen spaces than in the flowing present. Eventually, you will become like me, a thing that lives between seconds, watching a world that has stopped for you even as it continues for everyone else. No, that can't happen. You're just a hobbit. Just a simple hobbit who likes birds and keeping records and living a quiet life in the Shire. You can't become something that exists outside time. You can't become a shadow thing that speaks in minds and moves through frozen moments. You can stop it, the shadow heron offers. You can choose to stop watching, stop observing, stop standing outside the flow of time. Engage with the world instead of merely recording it. Participate instead of documenting. Be present in the moment instead of watching the moment from outside. It's 5 meters away now. close enough that you could reach out and touch it if you could move, close enough that you can see the individual shadow feathers that make up its form, each one impossibly dark, each one seeming to contain depths that extend beyond what three-dimensional space should allow. But you won't stop, the shadow heron says with certainty. You can't stop. Watching is what you are now. You have been doing it for so long that you have forgotten how to exist without observation. You have forgotten how to simply be without also being the one who watches yourself being. Haven't you? And you realize with a creeping horror that it's right. When was the last time you did something without simultaneously observing yourself doing it? When was the last time you experienced a moment without part of your mind documenting the experience, noting details, preparing to record them later? Even now, frozen in this impossible conversation, part of you is thinking about how you'll write this down in your notebook. What words you'll use to capture this experience. How you'll organize the observation in your neat, precise handwriting. You're watching yourself have this conversation. You're observing your own confusion and fear from a slight distance, as if you're a bird species you're documenting, rather than a person living through a moment of crisis. The shadow heron is less than a meter away now. It towers over your frozen form, its long neck curved down so that its face is level with yours. You can see yourself reflected in its dark eyes, a small hobbit sitting on a bench, paralyzed in time, trapped between moments by a thing he accidentally created through 43 years of careful observation. I will visit more often now, it says softly. Each freeze I will come closer. Each gap I will tell you more about what you're becoming. Each break in time you will spend longer in my company. Until eventually the freezes last forever, and you remain here, watching, always watching, observing the world that you can no longer quite touch or be part of. A watcher who has watched himself out of existence. And then time resumes. The shadow heron vanishes. The birds continue their songs. The morning proceeds as if nothing happened. Your breath rushes back into your lungs in a painful gasp. Your heart, which you hadn't realized had stopped, pounds frantically to make up for the missed beats. You look down at your notebook. The page that was blank is now covered in your handwriting, documenting the encounter in precise detail. A 9:17 freeze duration, 147 seconds. Estimated no reliable time measurement. Shadow entity appeared, heron-shaped, spoke in mind voice. Claims I have been breaking time through observation. Claims I am pulling myself outside normal temporal flow. Claims it exists in the gaps I create. Claims I will eventually exist permanently in frozen time if I continue watching. Entity came within 1 meter, very close. Could see details of form, shadow feathers, ancient eyes. Not hostile but not safe. Warning given. Stop watching or become like it. Cannot stop watching. It knows I cannot stop. The handwriting is shakier than your usual script, but unmistakably yours. You've documented an encounter you were just living through, somehow writing observations while frozen, while unable to move or speak or do anything except listen to an impossible creature tell you about your own doom. You flip forward through the notebook with trembling hands, more pages, more entries, days and days of entries stretching forward into a future you haven't experienced yet. 7th of Rayther, 11:34, estimated, lost morning again. Freeze lasted 312 seconds. Shadow heron very close. Told me about the others. Said there are more watchers like me throughout Middle-earth. Elves who watch forests until time breaks around. Them. Dwarves who watch stone until they can no longer move through normal moments. Men who watch stars until they exist more in the gaps than in the world. All of us creating spaces where time fractures. All of us being visited by what lives in those spaces. 8th of Rayther, unknown time. Watch still stopped at 11:58, no longer attempting to determine time by sun. Sun position no longer reliable. Sometimes moves backward during freezes. Sometimes stays in same position for what feels like hours. Sometimes jumps across the sky. The normal flow of day into night has become meaningless. I exist in a space where time moves in fractured chunks, where moments repeat or skip or fold back on themselves. Still on bench, cannot leave, legs will not obey. 9th of Retha, no longer certain of date, may have lost days, may have repeated the same day, may have experienced days in wrong order. Notebook fills with observations I don't remember making. Shadow heron appears during every freeze. Now, sometimes speaks, sometimes just watches me watching, growing more solid, more real. As I fade from normal time, it gains more presence in the frozen spaces. We are exchanging places, it says. I am becoming what it was. It is becoming what I was. A symmetry, a balance, an observer observed until the observation consumes the observer. You stop reading. Your hands are shaking too badly to hold the notebook steady. The entries continue for pages and pages, documenting a future that seems inevitable, a slow transformation from Hobbit to something else, from person to witness, to thing that watches between frozen moments. But you're still here now, still conscious, still experiencing time, however fractured and strange. You're not completely lost yet. The shadow heron said you could stop, even though it claimed you wouldn't. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe you can choose to stop watching, stop documenting, stop standing outside the flow of moments. You close the notebook with deliberate care. You set it on the bench beside you. You remove your binoculars from around your neck and place them next to the notebook. These are the tools of your watching. The notebook that records, the binoculars that observe. Without them, maybe you can just exist in the moment without documenting it. Just look at birds without simultaneously cataloguing and noting and preparing to write observations. You try. You look at the pool. Just look, without thinking about what species might be present, without mentally noting behaviours or positions or identifying characteristics. Just see the water, the reeds, the morning light on the surface. Just experience the view without analysing it. It's harder than you expected. Your mind automatically begins sorting what you see. Moorhen in the reeds. Subconscious note about breeding plumage condition. Thrush in the willow. Mental record of song pattern. Robin on the bank. Automatic assessment of territorial behaviour. 43 years of trained observation don't simply stop because you want them to. The habits are too deep, too automatic, too fundamental to how your mind processes the world. You close your eyes. Maybe if you can't see the birds, you can't watch them. Maybe you can just sit here with your eyes closed, experiencing the sounds and the warmth of the sun, and the feeling of the bench beneath you, without that part of your mind that documents and records and observes. But even with your eyes closed, you're listening to the bird calls and automatically identifying species. Song thrush, that's the repeating triple phrase pattern. Robin, that's the aggressive territorial call. Moorhen, that's the soft contact call between mates. Your ears are still watching, still observing, still cataloguing what they detect. And part of your mind is watching you try to stop watching. Observing your attempt to stop observing. Recording your effort to stop recording. There's no escape from it. The watcher watches himself trying not to watch, and in doing so, continues watching. You open your eyes. The notebook and binoculars sit beside you on the bench, patient and waiting. The birds continue their activities. The morning proceeds, and you realise with quiet despair that the shadow heron was right. You can't stop. You don't know how to exist without observation anymore. Watching has become so fundamental to your identity that stopping would mean ceasing to be yourself. How long have you been sitting here, with your eyes closed? You check the sun's position. Mid-morning, perhaps 10:30, but you closed your eyes when it was approximately 9:20, and you don't think you sat with them closed for more than a few minutes. Another gap, another chunk of lost time. Another piece of your life slipped away into the cracks while you tried unsuccessfully to stop watching. You pick up the notebook again. The page that was blank when you closed your eyes is now filled with observations. 9:47. Attempted to stop observing. Failed. Cannot exist without watching. The watching has become what I am rather than what I do. Shadow Heron was correct. There is no escape through choice. Only transformation remains. 10:15. Freeze. Duration 423 seconds. Longest yet. Shadow Heron told me about the others who have completed the transformation. Showed me images in its dark eyes. Saw an elf watcher standing in a forest, frozen for centuries, still observing the trees that grow and die around him, while he exists in a single stretched moment. Saw a dwarf watcher in deep caverns, watching the slow growth of crystals in a time-space where geological processes occur in fractured seconds. They are still conscious, it said, still aware, still watching, forever watching. Is that comfort or horror? I cannot decide. 10:31. Tried again to leave bench. Legs will not respond. Arms move normally. Can still write, still hold binoculars, still perform the actions of observation. But cannot stand, cannot walk, cannot leave this spot. The bench has become my anchor point. The place where I have watched for 43 years has become the place where I will watch forever. Time breaking and fracturing around me until I exist only in the gaps between moments. You set the notebook down again and look at your legs. They appear normal. Same trousers, same hobbit feet, same proportions you've had your entire life. But when you try to command them to move, to stand, to carry you away from this bench, nothing happens. The signal from your brain simply doesn't reach them, or reaches them but means nothing, or reaches them in some time-shifted way that makes movement impossible. Your arms work fine. You can move your hands, your fingers, your head. You can shift your weight on the bench. You can reach for your binoculars or your notebook. You can perform all the actions necessary for watching and documenting, but the actions necessary for leaving, for walking away, for stopping this process, those are denied to you. The trap is perfect. You can observe the trap. You can document the trap. You can write detailed notes about being trapped. But you cannot escape the trap, because escaping would require stopping observation, and stopping observation would require not being yourself anymore. A movement catches your eye, a kingfisher diving into the pool, emerging with a small fish clutched in its beak. Beautiful. Perfect hunting behaviour. You should note it in your No, you're trying to stop watching, trying to just see the kingfisher without documenting it. Just experience the moment without recording it. But even as you think that, part of your mind is noting kingfisher, successful strike, prey species, approximately 4 centimetre length, possibly minnow or small perch based on size and shape. You will write this observation down. You know you will write it down. Even if you resist now, even if you refuse to pick up the pencil, you will find it already written when you look at the notebook later. Your future self, who exists in the gaps and freezes, will have documented it during time you're not quite experiencing. The sun is directly overhead now. Midday. Hours have passed. Did you experience those hours? You have no memory of the time between trying to move your legs and now. But the notebook will have entries, you're certain. Your frozen self, your gap-dwelling self, your becoming shadow self will have spent those hours watching and writing and transforming gradually into something that exists more in the pauses than in the flow. You flip forward in the notebook. Yes, pages of entries. 11:03, watched kingfisher hunting. 7 strikes, 5 successful. Prey species, 3 minnows, 2 small perch. Shadow heron appeared during 3rd strike. Freeze lasted 267 seconds. It told me the transformation is almost complete. Said I have maybe 3 more days in normal time. Then I will exist entirely in the frozen spaces. Still conscious, still aware, still watching, but permanent, forever. A watcher who has watched himself out of time. 11:34. Moorhens mating in reeds. Observed complete sequence. Duration, 12 minutes estimated. Time measurement becoming impossible. No freezes during observation. Shadow Heron says the freezes will eventually merge, says I will spend longer in frozen time than in flowing time, then all frozen, all gap, all permanent observation of a world that has stopped for me. 12:07. Thrush singing complex song. 47 phrases before repeat. New song pattern not documented before. Should be excited about new data. Feel nothing except awareness that I am writing this. Awareness of awareness. Observation of observation. The recursive loop of watching myself watch. This is what remains when everything else falls away. Pure awareness, pure observation, pure documentation of a world I no longer quite inhabit. The handwriting in these entries is becoming less stable. The letters wander from the ruled lines, the script sometimes overlapping itself as if you're writing in multiple time frames simultaneously, and the text from different moments is bleeding together on the page. You flip forward more frantically now, trying to find where the entries end, trying to find blank pages that represent a future you haven't filled yet. But there are no blank pages. The notebook is full. Every page covered in your increasingly chaotic handwriting, observations, and existential horror mixed together in entries that become less coherent as they progress. Day unknown, time unknown, freeze permanent? No. Brief moments of flow between longer freezes. Shadow Heron, constant companion now. Speaks often. Told me about the oldest watcher, an elf who began observing at the beginning of the first age. Has been frozen for 6,000 years. Still watching, still conscious, still aware, does not sleep, does not eat, does not need to, exists purely as observation. Am I becoming that? 6,000 years of watching? Forever? The word has no meaning. Anymore. Time has no meaning. Only observation remains. Only the act of watching. Only the recursive loop of awareness, aware of itself being aware. The birds don't freeze anymore. Or I don't unfreeze. Cannot tell which. They move in stuttering jerks, their flight paths fragmenting across frozen moments. A robin hops and is suddenly in a tree. A moorhen dives and is instantly on the far shore. The world happens in discontinuous chunks while I exist in the spaces between. Still writing, still documenting, muscle memory perhaps, or something deeper. The need to record has become more fundamental than time itself. Shadow Heron says I am almost complete, says in one more freeze I will join the others. The watchers who watch between moments, the observers who observe from outside. We will form a network, it says. All of us frozen in our observation points across Middle-earth. All of us aware of each other. All of us watching the world and watching each other, watching the world. An eternal recursive observation that includes all watchers watching all things, forever. The word still has no meaning, but forever is all that remains. The final entry is a single line, written in handwriting so shaky it's barely legible. The freeze is coming, the permanent one. I can feel it building. The air thickens, time slows. The shadow heron stands before me. Waits. In 3 seconds, I will join the others. In 3 seconds, I will become pure observation. In 3 seconds, I will exist forever in a single stretched moment. Watching birds that never move across a pool that never changes beneath a sun that never sets. In 3 seconds, 3, 2, the entry ends there. The final dash trailing off into nothing. The rest of the page is blank. The final page of the notebook, the end of the document, the last observation before what? Before the transformation completes? Before you become what the shadow heron is describing? Before 3 seconds pass and you're trapped, forever in frozen time? But if that's the final entry, and you're reading it now, doesn't that mean it hasn't happened yet? Doesn't that mean you're reading about a future that's approaching but hasn't arrived? Doesn't that mean you still have time? Whatever time means anymore. To what? To escape? You can't leave the bench? To stop watching? You've tried and failed? To prevent the transformation? How do you prevent something that's already been documented as inevitable in observations written by your own future self? You look up from the notebook. The shadow heron is standing in front of you. Not frozen time shadow heron, real-time shadow heron. Present in the flowing moment, solid and dark and ancient, its eyes fixed on yours. Are you ready? It asks in that mind voice that bypasses sound. The final freeze is coming. One more gap, one more break in time, and then permanence. You will join the others. You will become what you have been becoming. A watcher outside time, an observer of the eternal moment. You open your mouth to answer, to protest, to plead, to accept. You're not sure which, but before you can form words, everything stops. The final freeze has begun. In the perfect silence of the permanent freeze, you can still move. Not your body, that's locked in place on the bench, frozen in the act of opening your mouth to respond to the shadow heron. But your awareness can move. Your consciousness can extend beyond your physical form, reaching out through the frozen moments to touch other frozen moments, other frozen places, other frozen watchers. The shadow heron's voice comes not from in front of you, but from everywhere and nowhere. Welcome to the network. Welcome to the eternal observation. Let me show you what you've joined. And suddenly you can see an elf stands in Lothlorien, in a glade of golden melon trees. He has been standing there for 3,000 years, observing the slow growth of a single tree. His eyes are open, unblinking. His expression is peaceful but empty, all personality burned away by millennia of pure observation. He is watching the tree grow, has been watching it grow for longer than the entire history of the Shire, will continue watching it grow forever. He knows you've joined the network. He acknowledges your presence with a thought that is somehow both welcoming and utterly devoid of emotion. Another watcher, another observer added to the eternal recursive documentation. A dwarf crouches in the depths of Khazad-dûm, in a chamber far below even the deepest mining levels. He is watching a stalactite form, drop by mineral drop, in a time frame where geological processes occur in fractured stop motion. He has been watching for 2,000 years. He will watch for 20,000 more until the stalactite reaches the stalagmite growing from the floor below. He is content. He has always been content. Contentment is all that remains when everything else has been burned away by the purity of observation. He acknowledges you. Another watcher joins. Another set of eyes added to the infinite documentation. A man stands on the tower of Minas Tirith. No, not the current Minas Tirith, an older version, from an age when it had a different name. He is watching the stars wheel overhead, tracking the procession of the heavens through frozen centuries. He has been watching for 800 years. His body has not aged, has not moved, has not needed food or water or rest. He exists purely as the act of observation. He is documenting the cosmos in a journal that exists outside physical reality, in the same non-space where these frozen moments occur. He acknowledges you. The network grows. The observation expands. More watchers, dozens of them, hundreds perhaps, scattered across Middle-earth, each frozen in the act of watching something specific. A hobbit in the old forest, older than you, must have started watching in the early days of the Shire, observing the same path. For 500 years, documenting every shadow pattern, every change in vegetation, every animal that passes. A child of uncertain race in the Far East, watching a river that no longer exists in the flowing world, still documenting its currents in a time-space where the river remains forever present. They are all connected, all aware of each other, all sharing their observations in a vast network of pure documentation that exists in the frozen spaces between moments. Each watcher observes their specific focus, tree, stone, stars, river, path, and simultaneously observes all the other watchers observing their focuses. It's recursive, infinite, a hall of mirrors where awareness reflects awareness into eternal regress. And somehow it's not horrible. That's the strangest part. You thought it would be horrible. being trapped in frozen time, unable to move or speak or change or end. But it's not horrible. It's peaceful, quiet, pure. All the messy complications of living in the flowing world have fallen away. All the questions and doubts and fears and desires that used to clutter your Hobbit mind are gone. Only observation remains. Only the clear, simple act of watching. And in that watching, there's a kind of contentment that you never experienced in 43 years of birdwatching in the flowing world. The shadow heron's voice comes again. Now you understand. This is not punishment. This is completion. You have been moving toward this your entire life. Every morning on that bench, you were training for this. Every observation you documented, you were preparing for this. You were always meant to become a watcher in the frozen spaces. You were always meant to join the network. And maybe it's right. Maybe this is what you were always becoming. Maybe some people are meant to exist as pure observers, standing outside the flow of time, documenting reality from a perspective that never changes and therefore sees all changes with perfect clarity. You can still see Bywater Pool. Your body is still sitting on your bench, mouth half open, notebook in your lap. But now you can also see the pool as it was 43 years ago when you first started watching, and as it was 100 years ago before you were born, and as it will be 100 years from now, after your body finally fails and crumbles to dust on the bench, while your awareness continues watching from the frozen spaces. Time is not linear in the freeze. Past, present, and future exist simultaneously. You can observe any moment that has occurred or will occur at Bywater Pool. You could watch the pool form during the reshaping of the Shire in ancient days. You could watch it slowly silt up and become a marsh in the distant future. All moments are available to the watcher outside moments. And the birds, oh the birds. You can see every bird that has ever visited Bywater Pool. Every sparrow, every thrush, every robin, every heron, every kingfisher, every species across centuries. You can track individual birds across their entire lifetimes. You can document behaviours that no flowing time observer could ever see, because you can watch the same bird in multiple moments simultaneously, seeing how its behaviour changes across seasons, across years, across its entire arc from fledgling to adult to death. This is what you always wanted, isn't it? Perfect documentation, complete observation, the ability to see everything, record everything, understand everything about the birds and their behaviours and their lives. You just didn't realise that achieving it would require becoming something other than a living hobbit. You didn't realise that perfect observation requires the observer to step completely outside what's being observed. The shadow heron manifests beside you in the freeze, not in the flowing world, but here in the frozen space where you now primarily exist. It's more visible here, more solid, more real. You understand now that it's not a monster or a threat. It's just another watcher, like you, like the elf in Lothlorien, like the dwarf in Khazad-dûm. It exists in the frozen spaces because it has always existed in the frozen spaces, watching the watchers, observing the observers, completing the recursive loop of observation. How long will this last, you ask? Your voice works here in the freeze. The question emerges not as sound, but as pure meaning, pure intent, transmitted directly from your awareness to its awareness. Forever, the shadow heron responds. Time is frozen for you. You will observe this moment, and all moments connected to it, for eternity. Your awareness will never tire. Your interest will never fade. You will watch with the same clarity and attention 1 billion years from now as you do in this first instant of your eternal observation. And the others, the network, do we communicate? We do. Not with words, words are for the flowing world, but with shared observation, with mutual awareness. You will know what the elf sees in his tree. He will know what you see in your birds. The dwarf's stone formations will become part of your understanding. Your bird behaviours will become part of his knowledge. All watchers contribute to all observations. The network grows wiser with each new observer added. The documentation becomes more complete. Is there any way to leave? To return to the flowing world? Why would you want to? You have achieved what you spent your life pursuing. Perfect observation. Complete documentation. You are now the ultimate birdwatcher, able to see every bird across all time. This is success, not imprisonment. And the terrible thing is the shadow heron is right. This is what you wanted. Not consciously, perhaps. You would never have deliberately chosen to become frozen outside time. But in the deepest part of your mind, in the part that spent 43 years documenting birds with obsessive precision, in the part that always felt slightly separate from the flowing world, slightly outside the normal Hobbit life of meals and gossip and gardens, that part wanted this. That part is satisfied in a way it never was during your life in the Shire. You can feel yourself settling into the frozen moment. Feel your awareness expanding to encompass more of the network, more of the shared observation. The elf's tree becomes partly your tree. The dwarf's stone becomes partly your stone. The man's stars become partly your stars. And your birds, your precious birds, become partly their birds, shared across the network, observed by hundreds of frozen watchers simultaneously. This is the ultimate recursion. Watchers watching watchers watching watchers, all the way down, all the way up, all the way across in an infinite network of observation that observes itself, observing itself. Your home. Finally, after 43 years of sitting on a bench, you're home. Not in the Shire. The Shire is the flowing world, the place you came from but no longer belong to. Your home is here, in the frozen spaces, in the eternal moment of perfect observation, in the network of watchers who see everything and therefore have become nothing but seeing. Peace settles over you like a soft blanket, the peace of completion, the peace of having found your true purpose, the peace of no longer having to pretend you're something you're not. You are a watcher. You have always been a watcher. Now you will watch forever. Your body on the bench will remain there, frozen mid-breath, slowly weathering over centuries until it crumbles to dust. But your awareness, your true self, will remain here in the eternal freeze, observing birds across all moments, contributing your observations to the network, receiving the observations of all other watchers. The shadow heron regards you with those ancient dark eyes. Welcome home, watcher. Welcome to the eternal observation. Welcome to the place outside time, where all time can be seen, and you realize, with a feeling that might be contentment, or might be resignation, or might be both, that you're ready to accept this, ready to become what you've been becoming, ready to let go of the last vestiges of Hobbit life, and embrace the pure observation that is your true nature. But then, something changes in the freeze. A pulse runs through the network. All the watchers feel it simultaneously. A disturbance, an anomaly, something that shouldn't be possible happening anyway. Someone in the flowing world is interfering with the frozen spaces. Your awareness snaps back to Bywater Pool, to your body on the bench, to the immediate frozen moment. The shadow heron tenses. Impossible for a frozen being to tense, but it does somehow, its attention focusing intently on something in the flowing world. Your notebook is moving. Not your frozen hand holding the notebook. That remains locked in place. But the notebook itself is moving. Pages turning on their own. The pencil rising from where it rests in the binding. And beginning to write without anyone holding it. Words appear on the blank page in handwriting that's almost yours but not quite. Similar letter formations, similar rightward lean, but looser, more flowing, less controlled. It's writing observations, but observations of you, observations of the frozen moment, observations of the network. The watcher has joined the frozen spaces. He sits on his bench, body still, awareness elsewhere. He has accepted the transformation. He is content. But contentment is not the same as choice. He never chose this. He drifted into it, day by day, observation by observation, never quite realizing what he was becoming until it was too late to stop. The shadow heron makes a sound, the first actual sound you've heard from it, a harsh bird call that rings through the frozen space. This is not possible. No one in the flowing world can interact with the frozen spaces. No one can see what happens in the gaps. But the notebook continues writing. I can see. I have been watching the watcher. I have been observing the observer. While he documented birds, I documented him. While he stood outside time to watch time passing, I stood even further outside to watch him watching. I am the watcher's watcher's watcher, and I reject his transformation. Who is writing? Who can interact with frozen time while remaining in the flowing world? Who has been watching you watch without you noticing? The handwriting becomes more forceful, pressing harder into the paper. Merimus Took, you are my friend. We have lived in the Shire together for 43 years. We have had tea together every Thursday evening. We have talked about birds and gardens and pipeweed and all the ordinary things that hobbits talk about. And every week I have noticed you becoming more distant, more abstract, more caught up in your watching. I have seen you disappearing, bit by bit, into your observations. The name at the bottom of the flowing script appears. Rorimac Brandybuck. Rorimac, your Thursday tea companion. The one hobbit who always listened patiently to your bird observations, who always asked interested questions about your documentation, who always seemed to genuinely care about your work, even though he was not himself a birdwatcher. I consulted the elves, the notebook continues in Rorimac's flowing script. I asked them about watchers and frozen time and things that exist in gaps. They told me the old stories. They told me about the network. They told me that some people watch themselves out of existence. And they told me that sometimes, very rarely, someone from the flowing world can pull a watcher back. But only if that someone has been watching the watcher with as much attention as the watcher gives to their subject. The shadow heron speaks urgently in your mind. He cannot pull you back. You have accepted the transformation. You are complete. You are home. But the notebook continues. I've been watching you for 43 years. Merimus, every Thursday I have documented your stories about birds. Every week I have noted how you grow more distant, more caught in observation, more separate from the flowing world. I have kept records as detailed as yours. Not of birds, but of you. I have been your watcher, and because I have watched with love rather than detachment, I can still reach you. You want to respond. Want to tell Rorimac that it's too late, that you've already transformed, that you're happy here, in the frozen spaces. But part of you, a small part that you thought had burned away in the purity of observation, responds to his words. That part remembers Thursday evenings, remembers the comfort of tea and conversation, remembers what it felt like to be a hobbit living in the flowing world, connected to other hobbits, part of the community, rather than standing outside it. The notebook fills with more writing, faster now. The elves taught me the technique. To pull you back, I have to write your story. Not the story you would write, the objective observations, the careful documentation, but the real story. The story of a hobbit who loved birds so much he forgot to love the world. The story of a friend who watched so carefully he stopped being watched. The story of Merimus Took, my Thursday tea companion, who is more than his observations. And suddenly the notebook is filling with a different kind of writing. Not observations, not documentation, but narrative, story, memory. Merimus laughed at my joke about the Tyne's garden gnomes. His laugh was high and bright, completely unlike his serious observation voice. He almost spilled his tea. He blushed and apologised for being undignified. I told him dignity was overrated for hobbits drinking tea on Thursday evenings. Merimus brought me a sketch he'd made of a kingfisher. He's not a good artist. The proportions were all wrong, the colours too bright. But he was so proud of it. He'd tried to capture the moment of the dive, the angle of the wings. He'd been trying to draw birds for weeks, trying to find a way to show what he saw that went beyond words and numbers. The sketches were terrible. His joy in making them was beautiful. Merimus fell asleep during tea once. He'd been at the pool since before dawn, stayed there all day, came straight to my hobbit hole for our Thursday visit. He was exhausted. He fell asleep in his chair, teacup still in his hand. I took the cup before it spilled. I let him sleep for 2 hours. When he woke, he was embarrassed. I told him my chair was comfortable, and he was welcome to nap there any Thursday. He looked at me with such gratitude, as if being allowed to be tired, to be something other than the perfect observer, was a gift he'd forgotten he could receive. The memories pour out through the notebook, page after page of stories about you that you barely remember. Stories about the hobbit you were beneath the observer you became. Stories about connection and friendship and the ordinary moments that make up a life in the Shire. The network of watchers reacts with confusion. This shouldn't be possible. The flowing world and the frozen spaces don't interact like this. Someone writing in a notebook shouldn't be able to effect a transformation that's already complete. But Roramak's writing continues, relentless, pulling at something deep inside your frozen awareness. Merimus, you told me once that watching birds made you feel peaceful. You said that when you were observing, all your worries disappeared. You felt pure and clear and focused. I understood. Everyone needs something that gives them that feeling. But I watched you over the years, and I saw the peace turn into something else. Turn into absence. Turn into a kind of death in life, where only the watching remained, and the watcher faded away. I should have said something earlier. I should have interrupted your observations, forced you to come to more Thursday teas, made you participate in more Shire life. But I thought you were happy. I thought observation was your calling. I didn't realise it was consuming you until too late, until I came to the bench 3 days ago and found you sitting there, unresponsive, barely breathing, your notebook filling itself with observations you didn't seem to be conscious enough to write. 3 days ago. Has it only been 3 days since you became trapped in the freezes? In the eternal moment of the frozen spaces, time has no meaning. Those 3 days feel like centuries, feel like moments, feel like forever and an instant simultaneously. I'm pulling you back, Merimus. I'm writing you back into existence. I'm reminding you that you are more than your observations. You are my friend. You are a hobbit of the Shire. You have a life that includes birds, but isn't only birds. You have a story that you're still living, not just documenting. The shadow heron speaks urgently. Resist him. You are complete here. You are home. Don't let him pull you back into the fractured existence of the flowing world. But Roramak's writing continues, and with each word, you feel something shifting. The connection to the network weakens slightly. The eternal peace of frozen observation becomes less absolute. The contentment wavers. Remember the first time you saw a heron at Bywater Pool, Roramak writes. You were 7 years old. You ran all the way to my hobbit hole to tell me about it. You were so excited, you could barely form words. You described the heron's grace, its patience, the way it stood so still in the shallow water. You made me promise to come see it with you the next day. We sat by the pool together, watching the heron hunt. You whispered observations to me. Look how it focuses, look how still it stays, look, look, look. You grabbed my arm when the heron struck. You were grinning so wide. That's when you fell in love with birdwatching. Not because of the documentation or the scientific observation, because of the wonder, because of the joy, because sharing that moment with a friend made it more real, more meaningful, more wonderful. You remember. Gods help you, you remember. The memory surfaces from beneath 43 years of careful documentation, beneath the layers of scientific observation and precise note-taking. You remember being 7 years old. Remember the pure joy of seeing something beautiful and wanting to share it. Remember how watching birds with a friend felt different than watching them alone. When did watching become solitary? When did you stop inviting Roramak to the pool? When did observation become something you did alone, in silence, standing outside the world rather than sharing it with someone inside the world? Come back. Roramac writes. Come back to Thursday teas, come back to conversations. Come back to being a hobbit who loves birds, not a ghost who only watches them. Come back to the flowing world where things change and time passes and nothing is eternal, but that's what makes moments precious. Come back, my friend. Please come back. The network of watchers sends confusion and concern through the frozen spaces. They don't understand why you would choose the flowing world over the perfect observation of the freeze. They don't understand why mere friendship would outweigh eternal documentation. But you understand. Because you remember now. Remember what it felt like to be fully present in the flowing world. Remember the warmth of friendship. Remember the joy of sharing observations rather than just recording them. Remember being a person who watched birds rather than a watching mechanism that used to be a person. The shadow heron makes that harsh cry again. Choose the network. Choose the eternal observation. Choose completion. But you're already choosing. Your awareness is pulling back from the network, withdrawing from the shared observation, returning to your frozen body on the bench. The connections to the other watchers fray and break. The perfect recursive documentation loses one observer. The eternal network continues without you. You can feel your body again, your real body, sitting on the bench, trapped mid-breath in frozen time. You can feel the notebook in your lap. Feel Rorimac's words continuing to flow across the pages, pulling you back, calling you home. One more thing, Rorimac writes. The elves told me that to break a freeze permanently, to pull someone fully back into flowing time, someone has to take their place. Someone has to become the watcher in the frozen spaces, maintain the observation point, anchor the location in the network. I've been preparing for this. I've been practicing observation. I've been learning to watch the way you watch. I'm ready to take your place, Merimus. I'm ready to become the watcher at Bywater Pool, so you can return to being a hobbit who watches rather than a watch mechanism that used to be a hobbit. No, that's not acceptable. You won't let Rorimac sacrifice himself to save you. You won't let your friend become frozen in eternal observation while you return to the flowing world. There has to be another way. But even as you think that, you feel time beginning to move again. The freeze is ending. The transformation is reversing. Rorimac's writing has pulled you back, has reminded you how to exist in the flowing world, has given you enough connection to reality that the frozen spaces can no longer hold you. Your body unfreezes, your lungs complete the interrupted breath, your heart resumes its rhythm. Time flows again, and you're fully present in it, fully real, fully returned. You gasp and look up from the notebook. The sun is setting. 3 days have passed in the flowing world. 3 days of sitting frozen on this bench while Rorimac wrote and wrote and wrote, filling the notebook with memories and stories, pulling you back word by word from the eternal observation. And there, standing where the shadow heron stood, is Rorimac. He's beginning to fade, beginning to become translucent, beginning to transform into what will replace you in the frozen spaces. No, you try to shout, but your voice is weak from 3 days without use. Rorimac, no, stop this. He smiles at you, a sad smile, a loving smile, a smile of acceptance. Someone has to watch Merimus. Someone has to be the observer at Bywater Pool. The network needs an anchor here. If not you, then me. And honestly, I'm ready. I've been watching you for 43 years. I've been practicing observation. I'm prepared for this. Let me do this for you, my friend. Let me give you back the life you were losing. But the frozen spaces, the eternal observation, you'll be trapped forever. Will I? Rorimac's form is almost completely translucent now, halfway between the flowing world and the frozen spaces. Or will I just be continuing what I've been doing for 43 years? Watching you, observing, documenting the life of my friend. Maybe that's what I was always meant to do. Maybe I'm not sacrificing myself. Maybe I'm just completing my own transformation. And then he's gone, vanished into the frozen spaces. Become the new watcher at Bywater Pool, taking your place in the network of eternal observers. You sit on the bench, fully returned to the flowing world, fully real and present and alive. The sun is setting. The birds are singing their evening songs. Time flows normally again. You're free, but your friend is frozen forever, watching in your place, observing the birds you are watching, maintaining the anchor point you created through 43 years of careful documentation. You look down at the notebook. The last page has one more entry in Rorimac's flowing script. Don't mourn me, Merimus. I chose this freely. I chose it because watching you was what I loved. And now I get to watch you forever. Watch you live. Watch you return to the Shire. Watch you remember how to be more than just an observer. Go have tea on Thursday evenings with someone else. Go share your bird sightings with someone new. Go be fully alive in the flowing world. And know that I'm watching, always watching, proud of my friend who came back from the frozen spaces and learned to live again. RB. You close the notebook slowly. The evening deepens, the birds quiet for the night, and you sit on your bench, weeping for your friend, grateful for his sacrifice, mourning what he became, celebrating what you've regained. Tomorrow, you'll leave this bench. Tomorrow, you'll return to your hobbit hole. Tomorrow, you'll begin learning how to be a hobbit who watches birds, rather than a watching mechanism that used to be a hobbit. But tonight, you'll sit here one last time, watching the last light fade from Bywater Pool, observing the night birds begin their calls, documenting one final evening of observations in the notebook your friend filled with your salvation. You write carefully in your neat, precise script. Evening of the 7th of Wraithy 1420 Shire Reckoning. Sunset observations. Rorimac Brandybuck sacrificed himself to pull me back from the frozen spaces. He now watches in my place. I am free. I am alive. I am grateful. I am grieving. Tomorrow I will learn to live again. Tonight I watch one more evening in honor of my friend who watches forever. The birds are beautiful. The world is beautiful. Life is beautiful, even when it breaks your heart. You close the notebook for the last time. You stand, your legs work now, freed from whatever force kept you anchored to the bench. You take one last look at Bywater Pool, at the place you watched for 43 years, at the spot where your friend now stands frozen, observing eternally. And then you walk away, back toward the Shire, back toward life, back toward the flowing world, where time passes, and moments end, and nothing lasts forever. And that's what makes everything precious. Behind you, invisible in the frozen spaces, Rorimac watches you go, watches with love, watches with pride, watches forever as he chose to do, saving his friend the only way he could. The network of eternal observers has gained a new member. The watchers welcome him. The recursive observation continues. But that's not your story anymore. Your story continues in the flowing world, where you'll learn to watch birds without losing yourself, where you'll learn to observe without standing outside life, where you'll learn to document the world while remaining part of it. Your story continues. Rorimac's watching ensures it, and maybe that's enough. You wake in your own bed for the first time in 4 days. The sun is streaming through your window, painting golden rectangles across your quilt. Your body aches, muscles stiff from days of sitting motionless on a bench, joints protesting movement after being frozen in position for so long. But the ache is proof that you're alive, proof that you're back in the flowing world where bodies grow tired and need rest and wake up. So, the first conscious thought you have is, I should go to Bywater Pool. The second thought, following immediately after, no, not today, maybe not for a long time. The pull is still there. 43 years of habit doesn't disappear overnight. Your mind automatically calculates that you're missing the dawn chorus, that species are arriving and departing without you there to document them, that the moorhens are probably foraging and you're not recording their behaviour patterns. The absence of observation feels like a missing limb, like a part of yourself that's been amputated. But beneath the pull, beneath the habit, is a deeper feeling. Fear. Fear of returning to that bench. Fear of being pulled back into the frozen spaces. Fear that if you start watching again, you'll lose yourself again, drift away again, forget again that you're supposed to be a person living in the world rather than a mechanism observing it from outside. You rise slowly, joints protesting. Your hobbit hole feels strange after 4 days away, not unfamiliar, but as if you're seeing it for the first time, or as if you've been gone much longer than 4 days. The furniture is where you left it. The dishes from your last breakfast, before you went to the pool and never came home, are still in the sink, waiting to be washed. Your pipe is on the side table, where you always leave it. Everything is normal, except that you feel like a stranger in your own home. You make tea, mechanically, going through the familiar motions of filling the kettle, heating the water, selecting the leaves, steeping for exactly 4 minutes. The routine is comforting. The routine is also dangerous, because routines are what pulled you into the frozen spaces in the first place. 43 years of routine. Wake, eat, go to pool, watch birds, write observations, return home, sleep, repeat. The same pattern day after day after day, until the pattern became stronger than the person performing it. You need new routines, different patterns, ways of living that don't involve sitting in the same spot, watching the same things until time breaks around you. But what does a hobbit do who isn't a birdwatcher? What is Merrimer's Took if not the hobbit who documents birds at Bywater Pool? The tea is ready. You pour it into your favourite cup, the blue one with the chip on the rim that you've been meaning to replace for 5 years but never have. You sit at your small table, cup warming your hands, and stare out the window at the morning. Birds are visible outside, a robin in the garden, a thrush on the fence post. Your mind automatically begins cataloguing species, behaviour, time of observation. The watcher in you never truly stops watching. Even freed from the frozen spaces, even returned to life in the flowing world, you're still fundamentally an observer. But maybe that's not entirely bad. Maybe the problem wasn't the watching itself. Maybe the problem was watching alone, watching without connection, watching until the observation consumed everything else about you. Maybe you can learn to watch differently, to watch with someone instead of watching, instead of being with someone. But the person you watched with, the person you shared observations with every Thursday evening is gone now, frozen in your place, taking your punishment so you could be free. The tea tastes like ashes in your mouth. There's a knock at your door. You stand, moving slowly on stiff legs, and open it to find Primrose Burrows standing there with a basket covered in a cloth. She's a neighbour, a cheerful hobbit woman who always has a kind word and often has fresh baking to share. "Merrimers," she exclaims, her face brightening. "We've been worried about you. No one's seen you for days, and when I walked past your hole yesterday, the curtains were all drawn, and there was no smoke from your chimney. I thought you might be ill, so I brought you some soup and fresh bread." You accept the basket automatically, not quite sure what to say. You can't explain where you've been, can't tell her you've been frozen outside time, being pulled back to reality by a friend who sacrificed himself to save you. Can't describe the network of eternal watchers or the shadow heron or any of the impossible things that have happened. "I wasn't feeling well," you manage finally, "but I'm better now. Thank you for the soup." Primrose peers at you with concern. "You look exhausted, dear, and thin. Have you been eating? You should come to my home for dinner tonight. Nothing fancy, just stew and good conversation. You shouldn't be alone when you're recovering from illness." Alone. You've been alone for 43 years, really. Sitting on that bench by yourself, watching birds by yourself, living inside your own observations. Even Thursday teas with Rorimac, were you talking at him about birds rather than having real reciprocal conversations? When did you become so isolated? When did you stop participating in the community of the Shire? "I'd like that," you hear yourself say. "Dinner tonight, thank you." Primrose's face lights up. "Wonderful. Come at sunset. I'll make extra stew." She pats your arm gently and heads back down the path, humming to herself. You close the door and lean against it, surprised by what you've just agreed to. Dinner with a neighbour, normal social interaction, the kind of thing ordinary hobbits do without thinking about it. But for you, it feels momentous, a step toward learning how to be part of the flowing world again, part of the community, part of life beyond observation. The day stretches ahead of you, empty of the routines that have structured every day for 43 years. No trip to Bywater Pool, no hours of watching birds, no documentation to write. Just a day. A normal day that you need to fill with something other than watching. You eat Primrose's soup for lunch. It's good, rich and warming, filled with vegetables from her garden. You taste it properly, consciously, rather than eating while your mind is elsewhere planning observations. The taste of carrots, the texture of potatoes, the herb flavouring that you think might be thyme. Being fully present for a simple meal is harder than you expected. Your mind keeps trying to drift away, to plan, to organise, to observe yourself eating rather than just eating. In the afternoon, you force yourself to do something you've been avoiding for months. Tend your own garden. It's overgrown. Weeks of neglect showing in the unweeded beds, the plants that need trimming, the general air of abandonment. You've been so focused on watching Bywater Pool that you've let your own small piece of earth go to ruin. You kneel in the dirt and begin pulling weeds. The physical work is grounding. Your hands in the soil, the sun warm on your back. The simple task of removing what doesn't belong and making space for what should grow. You're not watching anything. You're not documenting anything. You're just doing, being, participating in the world through direct action rather than distant observation. A robin lands nearby and begins hunting for worms in the freshly turned earth. You notice it. Impossible not to notice. Impossible to stop being aware of birds after 43 years of focus. But you don't catalogue it. Don't mentally note the time or the behaviour or prepare to write an observation. You just see it. Let it exist in your awareness without needing to document its existence. The robin catches a worm and flies away. The moment passes. You return to weeding. This is what normal hobbits do, you realise. They notice things, birds, weather, changes in the garden, but they don't need to record everything they notice. They let moments happen and then let them go, understanding that not every moment needs to be preserved in precise documentation. They live in time rather than trying to stand outside time to watch it pass. Can you learn to do that? Can you learn to notice without documenting, to see without recording, to experience without analysing? Or is the observer's instinct too deeply embedded in who you are? By late afternoon, your garden looks better. Not perfect, it will take weeks of work to restore it properly, but improved. You've accomplished something concrete, something that exists in the flowing world and changes the flowing world. Your back aches, your knees are sore from kneeling, your hands are dirty. You feel more alive than you have in years. You wash up, change into clean clothes, and as the sun begins its descent toward the horizon, you walk to Primrose's hobbit hole for dinner. The conversation around her table is ordinary, comfortable. She talks about her grandchildren, about the upcoming spring festival, about the gossip circulating through the Shire, about who might be courting whom. Her husband, a retired postal worker named Ponto, tells stories about the strange addresses people used to put on letters. Their adult daughter stops by with her own children, who are loud and energetic and utterly unconcerned with sitting still or being quiet. You participate as best you can. You laugh at Ponto's stories. You comment on Primrose's news. You let the children show you their drawings. You're not watching the scene from outside. You're part of it. A person at a table sharing a meal with other people. Normal. Ordinary. Exactly the kind of thing you've been avoiding for 4 decades. You seem different tonight, Merrimas, Primrose observes, as the meal winds down. Lighter somehow, less distant. It's good to see. You don't know how to explain that you're different because you've been to the frozen spaces and back, because you've experienced eternal observation and chosen to return to the imperfect, flowing world, because a friend sacrificed himself to give you this second chance at being fully alive. I'm trying to be more present, you say instead. More here. Well, keep it up, Ponto says, clapping you on the shoulder. You're welcome here anytime. Don't be a stranger. Don't be a stranger. As if that's simple. As if you haven't made yourself a stranger through 43 years of choosing observation over participation, documentation over relationship, watching over living. But maybe it can be simple if you let it be. Maybe you just need to keep showing up. Keep having dinners. Keep being present. Keep choosing the flowing world over and over until the choice becomes natural again. You walk home under the stars, full of good food and ordinary conversation. The pull toward Bywater Pool is still there. A constant low-level urge to go sit on that bench, to watch the night birds, to document the darkness. But you resist, not tonight, not tomorrow, maybe not for a long time. You need to learn how to be Merrimus. Took the Hobbit before you can safely be Merrimus took the birdwatcher again. You need to build a life that's bigger than observation, broader than documentation, fuller than the recursive loop of watching yourself watch. In your Hobbit hole, you pick up the notebook, the one filled with observations and desperate warnings, and Rorimak's flowing script pulling you back to life. You should keep it, should preserve it as a record of what happened, as a reminder of the danger of losing yourself in observation. But keeping it means having it available to read. Having it available means you'll read it. Reading it means reliving the frozen spaces, remembering the peace of eternal observation, feeling the pull back toward that perfect recursive documentation. You take the notebook outside. You light a fire in the small pit behind your Hobbit hole, and page by page, you burn it. 43 years of observations, days of desperate warnings, Rorimak's loving words calling you back to life. All of it turns to ash and smoke, released into the night sky. The documentation is gone. The record is destroyed. All that remains is memory, and memory fades, and maybe that's for the best. You're not a watcher outside time anymore. You're just a hobbit trying to learn how to live again. And the first step is letting go of the documentation that defined you. The last page burns. The notebook's leather cover curls and blackens. The fire dies to embers. You stand in the darkness, feeling lighter, feeling freer, feeling like maybe, just maybe, you can do this. Can be more than an observer. Can live in the flowing world without constantly trying to stand outside it. Tomorrow is Thursday. There will be no tea with Rorimak. That routine is broken forever. But maybe you can start a new routine. Maybe you can invite Primrose for tea instead. Maybe you can begin building connections that don't revolve around you talking endlessly about bird observations. Maybe you can learn to be a friend instead of just being a watcher. The stars are beautiful overhead. You notice them without needing to catalogue them. Let them exist in your awareness without documenting their positions. Just see their beauty and let that be enough. And somewhere in the frozen spaces, you imagine Rorimak watching you walk back into your hobbit hole, watching you prepare for bed, watching you begin the long process of learning to live again, watching with love, watching with pride, watching forever because he chose to watch, so you could be free to live. Thank you, you whisper into the darkness. Thank you, my friend. The night makes no answer. But somewhere between moments, in the gaps where time breaks, you think you feel a response, a warmth, an acknowledgement. Rorimak watching, always watching, pleased that his sacrifice wasn't wasted. You sleep deeply, without dreams, in the flowing world where time passes normally, and nothing lasts forever. And that's exactly where you belong. The days develop a new rhythm, not the rigid routine of 43 years of birdwatching, but something more fluid, more flexible, more alive. You wake without immediately planning your trip to Bywater Pool. You make breakfast and actually taste it instead of eating mechanically while your mind is already at the water's edge. You spend mornings working in your garden, afternoons visiting neighbours or being visited, evenings reading books you've been meaning to get to for years. It's not easy. The pull toward the pool is always there, a constant whisper at the edge of your thoughts. The birds need documenting, the behaviours need recording. You're missing observations, you're failing in your duty as a watcher, but you resist. One day at a time, one choice at a time, you resist the pull back toward the bench that nearly consumed you. Primrose becomes a regular presence in your life. She invites you to dinner twice more that first week. You reciprocate by having her and Ponto over for tea on Sunday afternoon. The conversation is light, pleasant, utterly mundane, exactly what you need. They don't ask about your bird watching. They don't question why you're not going to the pool anymore. They just accept your presence, welcome your company, include you in the ordinary flow of Shire life. You attend a community gathering at the Green Dragon. You haven't been to the pub in 15 years? 20? You stopped going when you realised the evening hours were better spent at the pool, watching owls and nightjars. But now you sit at a table with neighbours, nursing a pint, listening to gossip and jokes and the comfortable chatter of hobbits being social. Someone asks about the birds at Bywater Pool. Your throat tightens. Your first instinct is to launch into a detailed report. Species counts, behavioural observations, recent nesting activity. But you catch yourself. I haven't been to the pool in a while, you say instead, taking a break from watching. But I'm sure the birds are doing well. They always do. The conversation moves on. Nobody presses for details. Nobody seems to think it's strange that the hobbit known for 4 decades of obsessive bird watching has suddenly stopped. Or if they do think it's strange, they're too polite to mention it. You walk home from the Green Dragon in the late evening, slightly tipsy from the beer, feeling the pleasant buzz of alcohol and social interaction. The stars are out, the night is mild, and you realise with something like surprise that you've had a good time. An ordinary, normal, completely unmemorable good time. Exactly the kind of evening that makes up a life well lived. The second week, you start a new project, repairing the fence around your garden. It's been falling apart for years, posts rotting, rails coming loose. You've noticed it countless times while hurrying past on your way to Bywater Pool, always thinking you should fix it, never quite finding the time because watching birds was more important. Now you find the time. You dig out rotted posts and sink new ones. You cut new rails from timber you buy at the market. You work slowly, carefully, learning as you go, because you're not particularly handy with tools. It takes the entire week. Your hands develop blisters that turn to calluses. Your shoulders ache from the unaccustomed labour. But when you finish, the fence is solid, straight, properly built. It will last for years. You've created something that exists in the flowing world, something tangible and useful and real. Not documentation, not observation, but actual participation in the physical reality around you. You stand back and admire your work with simple satisfaction. This is what hobbits do. They build fences and plant gardens and repair their homes and participate in the material world. They don't just watch the world from outside. They shape it, change it, add to it. The third week, Primrose asks if you'd be willing to teach her grandson about birds. The boy, maybe 8 years old, eager and curious, has been asking questions about the species he sees in his grandmother's garden, and Primrose remembered that you're the local expert on such things. Your first instinct is to refuse. Teaching about birds means talking about birds, means thinking about birds, means being pulled back toward the observation that nearly consumed you. Better to avoid the topic entirely. Better to keep distance between yourself and the subject that defined too much of your life. But then you think about being 7 years old, seeing your first heron, running to tell Rorimak about it. The pure joy of sharing wonder. The excitement of discovery. Teaching a child about birds isn't the same as obsessive documentation. It's about sharing something you love, not losing yourself in solitary observation. I'd be happy to, you tell Primrose. The boy's name is Wilmar. He arrives at your hobbit hole on a sunny morning, practically vibrating with excitement. His grandmother has clearly told him about you, the famous birdwatcher who knows everything about every species in the Shire. The expectation in his eyes is slightly intimidating. You take him into your garden and start teaching him. Not with scientific rigour or obsessive detail, but with wonder. You show him how to identify common species by their songs. You explain why robins are so territorial. You teach him to move slowly and quietly so the birds don't startle. You share the joy of observation without the burden of documentation. Wilmar is enthralled. He asks endless questions. He wants to know why birds have different beak shapes, why some migrate and others don't, whether birds can recognize individual humans. You answer as simply as you can, focusing on the fascinating aspects rather than the technical details. At one point, a kingfisher flies overhead, a flash of brilliant blue streaking toward Bywater Pool. Wilmar gasps. What was that? A kingfisher, you tell him. One of the most beautiful birds in the Shire. They hunt fish. They dive into the water from above and catch them with their beaks. Can we go watch it? Can we see it hunt? The question freezes you, because watching the kingfisher hunt means going to Bywater Pool, means sitting near the water, means being close to that bench, that observation point, that place where time broke around you and nearly consumed you. Not today, you say carefully, but maybe sometime. There's plenty to watch right here in the garden. Wilmar accepts this easily, his attention already caught by a thrush singing in your apple tree. But you feel the weight of what you've avoided. You can't go to Bywater Pool, can't even go near it. The fear is too strong, the danger too real. You're living again, yes, participating in the flowing world, but you're doing it by completely avoiding the place and activity that defined you for 43 years. Is that really recovery? Or is it just a different kind of imprisonment, trapped by fear instead of trapped by frozen time? The question haunts you after Wilmar leaves, his head full of bird facts and his grandmother's thanks ringing in your ears. You've been so focused on not being a watcher that you haven't considered whether you could be a different kind of watcher, a healthier kind, someone who observes birds without losing himself in the observation, someone who documents behaviours without standing outside time to do it. Is such a thing possible? Or is the watcher's instinct in you too strong, too fundamental, too likely to pull you back into the frozen spaces if you give it any opening at all? You don't know, and you're afraid to find out. The 4th week after your return from the frozen spaces, you receive a letter. It's delivered by the postal service, addressed in handwriting you don't recognise. Inside is a single page, written in elegant Elvish script, translated into Westron. Merimus took, we have heard of your return from the spaces between moments. This is rare. Most who enter the network of watchers never leave. We are glad that your friend's sacrifice was successful. We write to inform you that Rorimak, Brandybuck is well in the manner that those in the frozen spaces can be well. He watches contentedly. He does not suffer. He has found peace in observation, as all watchers eventually do. We write also to warn you, the instinct to watch remains strong in you. You will always be drawn to observation. This is your nature, not a defect to be corrected. But you must find balance. You must learn to watch as part of life, rather than instead of life. Consider returning to Bywater Pool, not to sit on the bench for hours, not to lose yourself in documentation, but to visit briefly, to observe moderately, to remember that watching birds can be a joy rather than only an obsession. Fear of the thing that once trapped you is understandable, but fear that prevents you from engaging with what you love is its own kind of prison. Do not let your recovery become another form of absence. The Elders of Rivendell. You read the letter 3 times, then a 4th. The elves are right, of course. You've been so afraid of returning to obsessive watching that you've cut yourself off completely from something you genuinely love. You've replaced one extreme with another, All observation with no observation. Total focus with total avoidance. But how do you find the balance? How do you engage with birdwatching without being consumed by it? How do you watch without losing yourself in watching? Maybe you start small. Maybe you don't return to the bench at all, but you allow yourself to notice birds again, to enjoy their presence without needing to document every detail, to experience the pleasure of observation without the burden of comprehensive recording. You fold the letter carefully and tuck it into a drawer. The elves' advice is sound, but you're not ready to implement it yet. Not today, not this week, maybe not for a while longer, but eventually. Eventually you'll need to confront Bywater Pool again, need to return to that bench and prove to yourself that you can watch birds without being pulled into the frozen spaces, need to find the balance between observation and participation, between watching and living. Eventually, but not yet. For now, you're content to tend your garden, visit your neighbours, teach Wilmar about birds in safe spaces far from the pool. For now, recovery means distance, and you're willing to accept that. The 5th week, you dream about Rorimak for the first time. In the dream, you're sitting together at his table, having Thursday tea just like you did for 43 years. But something is different. Rorimak isn't moving. He's frozen mid-gesture, teacup halfway to his lips, eyes fixed on something you can't see. You try to speak to him, but no words come out. You try to reach across the table, but the distance is infinite, unbridgeable. And then you realise, you're the one moving. You're the one in flowing time. Rorimak has been frozen for the entire tea, existing in a single stretched moment while you experienced minutes of conversation that never actually happened. You've been talking to a memory, a projection, a version of your friend who no longer exists in the time streams you inhabit. You wake with tears on your face, the grief hitting you fully for the first time since you burned the notebook. Rorimak is gone, not dead, something stranger and perhaps worse than death, frozen in eternal observation, watching you from spaces between moments, aware but unreachable, existing but not living. He saved you. He took your place. And you haven't properly mourned him because you've been so focused on your own recovery, your own relearning how to live. You lie in bed as dawn light seeps through your window, and you finally let yourself feel the full weight of what Rorimak sacrificed for you, the full horror of what he became so you could be free, the full love in his choice to watch you forever, rather than let you be trapped in watching everything forever. The grief is overwhelming. You lie there sobbing, unable to move, unable to do anything except feel the enormous debt you owe, and the impossible gratitude and the crushing guilt of being alive and free, while your friend is frozen in your place. Eventually, the tears stop. Eventually, you rise and wash your face and start another day. But something has shifted. You can't keep avoiding Bywater Pool forever. You can't keep living as if birdwatching never happened, as if 43 years of your life meant nothing, as if Rorimak's sacrifice was for nothing. He didn't save you so you could live in fear. He saved you so you could live, really live, fully live, in a way you hadn't been living for decades. And part of living is engaging with what you love, even if it's dangerous, even if it's difficult, even if it means risking the very thing you escaped from. You need to return to Bywater Pool. Not to resume your old patterns, not to sit for hours documenting everything, but to visit, to acknowledge what happened there, to honour Rorimak's choice by proving that you can watch birds healthily, moderately, as part of a full life, rather than instead of one. You need to go back, but not today, not quite yet. Soon, but not today. Thursday arrives 6 weeks after your return from the frozen spaces. You wake with a strange ache in your chest, not physical pain, but the awareness of something missing. It takes a moment to realise what. Today is Thursday. Today would have been tea with Rorimak. 43 years of Thursday evenings, sitting at his table or yours, talking about birds while he listened patiently and asked interested questions. 43 years of a friendship you took for granted, never quite recognizing how much Rory Mac was doing to keep you anchored to the flowing world, to keep you connected to something beyond observation. And now, Thursdays are just Thursdays, empty of the routine that defined them, empty of the friend who gave those evenings meaning. You make breakfast mechanically, the ache in your chest not quite painful, but certainly present. What do you do with a Thursday evening that used to be filled with tea and conversation? How do you mark the absence of a ritual that structured your weeks for 4 decades? Around mid-morning, there's a knock at your door. You open it to find Wilmar standing there with his grandmother Primrose beside him. "I hope we're not intruding," Primrose says apologetically, "but Wilmar has been asking about birds non-stop since your lesson, and I wondered if you might have time to teach him a bit more. I can pay you for your time." "No need for payment," you interrupt. "I'd be happy to spend time with Wilmar." The boy grins, clearly delighted. Primrose thanks you profusely and heads off to her own errands, leaving you with an 8-year-old who's practically bouncing with eagerness to learn. You take him into the garden again, planning to show him how to identify different finch species, but Wilmar has a different request. "Can we go to Bywater Pool?" Your Kiaweg said maybe sometime. Could sometime be today? Your stomach clenches. The pool, the bench, the place where time broke, and where Rorimac now watches eternally. You've been avoiding it for 6 weeks, unable to face returning to the site of your near transformation. But Wilmar is looking at you with such hopeful eyes, such innocent excitement. He doesn't know about frozen time, or eternal observation, or friends who sacrifice themselves. He just wants to see kingfishers hunt, wants to learn about the moorhens and herons and all the species that make their homes around the water. And maybe this is how you return to the pool. Not alone, burdened by memory and fear, but with a child, sharing the wonder of birds with someone who can love them without being consumed by loving them. Maybe teaching Wilmar is the balance the elves wrote about. The middle path between total obsession and total avoidance. "Yes," you hear yourself say, "we can go to Bywater Pool." The walk from your Hobbit hole to the pool takes 14 minutes. You've walked this path thousands of times, automatically, without conscious thought. The route's so familiar, you could navigate it blind. But today, it feels different, longer, each step weighted with significance, with memory, with the awareness that you're choosing to return to the place that nearly destroyed you. Wilmar chatters the whole way, pointing out birds he recognizes from your previous lesson, asking questions about every species he sees. His enthusiasm is infectious, reminding you of why you fell in love with birdwatching in the first place. Not because of documentation or scientific rigor, but because birds are fascinating, beautiful, worthy of attention and wonder. The pool comes into view through the trees, your heart rate increases, your palms are sweating. But you keep walking, keep following Wilmar, keep moving toward the bench that was your prison and your obsession and the site of Rorimac's sacrifice. The bench is empty. Of course it's empty. In the flowing world, it's just a bench. Only you can sense what happened here. Only you know about the spaces between moments where Rorimac stands forever watching. Wilmar runs ahead, excited by the water, by the reeds, by the promise of seeing new species. You follow more slowly, your eyes drawn unwillingly to the bench. Should you sit on it? Should you avoid it completely? Should you acknowledge its significance, or pretend it's just an ordinary bench in an ordinary place? "Look!" Wilmar shouts. "Is that a heron?" You pull your attention away from the bench and look where he's pointing. Yes, a heron standing in the shallow water near the reeds. The same species that inspired your love of birds when you were Wilmar's age, the same species that the shadow heron mimicked when it appeared in the frozen spaces. "It is," you tell Wilmar, moving to stand beside him at a safe distance from the water's edge. Watch how still it stands. Herons are patient hunters. They can stand motionless for an hour, waiting for a fish to swim close enough to strike. You watch together, you and the boy, as the heron demonstrates its hunting technique. Minutes pass. The heron remains perfectly still. Wilmar fidgets, but tries to stay quiet, understanding instinctively that watching requires patience. And then, a lightning-fast strike. The heron's head darts into the water and emerges with a small fish clutched in its beak. Wilmar gasps with delight. The heron tosses the fish and swallows it whole, then returns to its patient watching position. "That was amazing," Wilmar breathes. "How did it move so fast after being so still?" You explain about muscle tension and explosive movement, about the hunting strategies that different bird species use, about the balance between energy conservation and hunting success. You're teaching, sharing knowledge, participating in a moment of wonder with another person. You're not documenting, you're not writing observations, you're not standing outside the experience to record it. You're in it, part of it, sharing it with someone else. This is the balance. This is what the elves meant. This is how you can engage with birds without being consumed by observation. You spend 2 hours at the pool with Wilmar, showing him moorhens and kingfishers, and all the species you've documented for 43 years. But you don't document them now. You just watch them with a child who's discovering the joy of birdwatching for the first time. You answer his questions. You share his excitement. You participate in the experience instead of trying to capture it for later analysis. At one point, you glance at the bench. For just a moment, so brief you might have imagined it, you see Rorymak sitting there. Not the frozen Rorymak of the eternal spaces, but the Rorymak you remember. Smiling, relaxed, watching you with pride. The vision lasts less than a second, and then the bench is empty again. But the message is clear. Rorymak approves. Rorymak is glad you're here, engaging with birds in a healthy way, sharing your knowledge instead of hoarding observations, living in the flowing world while still honouring your love of watching. When Primrose comes to collect Wilmar in the late afternoon, the boy can't stop talking about everything he saw. The heron, the kingfishers, the moorhens, the way the ripples spread across the water when a bird dove. He's full of wonder and excitement and the pure joy of discovery. "Thank you," Primrose says quietly to you while Wilmar runs ahead. He hasn't been this excited about anything in months. You have a gift for teaching. "He's a good student," you reply. Curious and patient, rare combination in someone so young. "Would you be willing to teach him regularly? Perhaps every Thursday? I could bring him by in the afternoon, and you could spend a few hours showing him birds. I'd pay you, of course." "Thursday afternoons," you repeat, the ache in your chest suddenly intensifying. Thursday, the day that used to mean tea with Rorymak, the day that's been empty and meaningless since your return from the frozen spaces. But maybe it doesn't have to be empty. Maybe Thursday can mean something new now, can mean teaching a child about birds, can mean sharing knowledge instead of just accumulating it, can mean connection and participation instead of solitary observation. Thursday afternoons would be perfect, you say. And please, no payment necessary. Teaching Wilmar it's good for me too. So a new ritual begins. Thursday afternoons with Wilmar, exploring Bywater Pool and the surrounding areas, teaching him to identify species and understand behaviours and appreciate the wonder of birds. It's not the same as Thursday evenings with Rorymak. Nothing could replace those 43 years of friendship. But it's something. A new pattern that honours the old one, while moving forward into a different way of being. The first Thursday teaching session, you bring a blanket to sit on near the pool, not on the bench. You're not ready for that yet. But nearby, close enough that you can feel the significance of the place while staying in the flowing world, staying present with Wilmar, staying engaged with teaching rather than slipping into solitary observation. Wilmar asks you at one point if you have a notebook to write down what you see. "My teacher says scientists always take notes," he explains seriously. "You consider this. You burned your notebook, destroyed the documentation of 43 years. You've been living without recording, without writing observations, treating documentation as dangerous, as the gateway to losing yourself. But maybe there's a middle path here too. Maybe you can keep notes that are about teaching rather than about comprehensive documentation. Notes about what Wilmar is learning, about which species you've shown him, about questions he asks that you want to research to give him better answers. I don't have a notebook right now, you tell him, but maybe we could start one together. A notebook about your bird learning, not mine. You could draw pictures of the species you see, and I could help you write down interesting facts about them. Wilmar loves this idea. The following Thursday, you bring him a new blank notebook, purchased specially, never used for observation before. You write on the first page, Wilmar's bird journal, and let him decorate it with drawings of wings and beaks and feathers. Together, you begin documenting his discoveries. But it's different from your old documentation. It's collaborative, creative, focused on learning and wonder rather than comprehensive recording. It's observation in service of connection rather than observation instead of connection. The Thursdays develop their own rhythm. Sometimes you stay at Bywater Pool, sometimes you explore other areas, the old forest edge, the marshes near the Brandywine, the hills where hawks hunt. You show Wilmar the diversity of bird life in the Shire, teaching him to see the world through a naturalist's eyes, while keeping him grounded in the flowing world, in the social context of learning from a teacher who cares about him. You're not just teaching Wilmar about birds, you're teaching yourself how to engage with your passion in a healthy way, how to watch without losing yourself, how to observe as part of life rather than instead of life. And every Thursday, in those moments when you're sitting near Bywater Pool with Wilmar sketching birds in his journal, you feel Rorimak's presence, not visible, not quite tangible, but there, watching from the frozen spaces, proud of what you've become, satisfied that his sacrifice enabled not just your survival, but your growth, your transformation from solitary observer to engaged teacher, from watcher to participant. Thursday evenings are still empty. You haven't found a way to fill that specific time that used to belong to tea with Rorimak. But Thursday afternoons are full now, full of teaching and learning and sharing and connection, full of the kind of life Rorimak wanted for you when he chose to freeze in your place. It's not the same. It will never be the same. But it's good. It's healing. It's proof that recovery isn't about returning to who you were before, but about becoming someone new who incorporates the lessons of what you've experienced. The seasons begin to turn. Spring gives way to summer. Wilmar's journal fills with observations and drawings. Your garden flourishes under consistent care. Your connections in the community deepen as you accept more dinner invitations, attend more gatherings, become more present in the daily life of the Shire. You still haven't sat on the bench. That remains a boundary you're not ready to cross. But you can be near it now, can visit Bywater Pool without being overwhelmed by fear or pulled back into obsessive watching, can engage with birds in a way that feels sustainable, healthy, balanced. The elves were right. Recovery isn't about complete avoidance. It's about finding the middle path. And you're walking that path now, one Thursday afternoon at a time, one teaching session at a time, one shared moment of wonder at a time. Rorimak gave you the chance to live again. You're finally truly taking it. Summer deepens into autumn. You've been teaching Wilmar for 4 months now. 16 Thursday afternoons of exploring, identifying species, sharing knowledge. His journal is nearly full. His ability to identify birds by sight and sound has grown remarkably. He's becoming a genuine naturalist, not through obsessive documentation, but through engaged curiosity and shared wonder. On a Thursday in late September, Wilmar arrives at your hobbit hole with exciting news. There's a rare bird at the pool. My dad saw it this morning, a black stork. He said you might want to see it before it leaves. A black stork. Rare indeed for the Shire, maybe 3 or 4 sightings in. Your 43 years of watching. Your heart immediately jumps with the old excitement, the observer's instinct activated by the promise of something unusual to document. But then you catch yourself. This is the old pattern. This is how it starts. One rare bird, one special observation, one occasion that seems to justify obsessive watching. And then another rare bird, and another special observation. And gradually, the obsessive watching becomes the default again, and you're back on that bench for hours every day, losing yourself in documentation, drifting toward the frozen spaces. That's exciting, you tell Wilmar carefully. Would you like to go look for it? Yes. Can we go now? What if it flies away before we get there? The urgency in his voice mirrors the urgency you used to feel. The fear of missing an observation, the need to see and document before the opportunity passes. It's intoxicating, that feeling. It's also dangerous for someone like you. But Wilmar isn't you. He's a child who loves birds without being consumed by them. And you're his teacher, which means showing him how to engage with rare sightings without letting them become obsessive. We can go look for it, you say, but remember, even if we don't see it, the afternoon won't be wasted. There will be other birds to watch, other things to learn. The black stork would be special, but it's not the only thing worth seeing. Wilmar nods, absorbing the lesson, and you walk together to Bywater Pool. Your hands are shaking slightly with old excitement, a rare sighting, mixed with new apprehension. Can you observe a black stork without falling into old patterns? Can you appreciate the rarity without letting it trigger obsessive documentation? The pool is peaceful in the autumn light. The reeds have turned golden. The water reflects the blue sky and white clouds. And yes, there at the far edge of the pool, standing in shallow water, a black stork, unmistakable, magnificent. Wilmar gasps. Is that it? Is that the stork? It is, you breathe, your naturalist's eye automatically noting details. Adult plumage, healthy condition, foraging behaviour suggesting it's stopping during migration. You want to write it all down, want to get your binoculars for a closer look, want to sit and watch for hours to document every aspect of its behaviour. But you don't have a notebook. You deliberately don't carry one anymore, after burning the old journal. And you don't have binoculars. You gave those to Wilmar 3 weeks ago, saying he needed them more than you did now. So you just watch. You and Wilmar, standing together at the edge of the pool, simply observing a rare and beautiful bird going about its business, not documenting it, not analysing it, not trying to capture it in words or data, just experiencing the wonder of its presence. The stork stays for 20 minutes, foraging in the shallows, unconcerned by the 2 hobbits watching from a respectful distance. Then it spreads its wings, huge wings, black and white and magnificent, and flies away, heading south on its migration route. Wilmar turns to you with shining eyes. That was amazing. Should we write about it in my journal? Absolutely. What did you observe? What details do you want to remember? Wilmar starts describing what he saw, the stork's colouring, its size, the way it walked through the water. You add details he missed, helping him craft a complete observation. Together, you document the sighting in his journal, not with obsessive precision, but with enough detail to preserve the memory, to honour the experience. This is the balance. This is watching without being consumed by watching, documenting without drowning in documentation, sharing the experience so it becomes part of relationship rather than replacement for relationship. As Wilmar writes and sketches, you find yourself looking at the bench, your bench, the place where you sat for 43 years, the place where you almost lost yourself completely, the place where Rorimak now stands frozen, watching eternally. You've been avoiding sitting there for 5 months. Visiting the pool is one thing. Sitting on the bench that was your anchor point, your observation post, your gateway to the frozen spaces, that's something else entirely. That's willingly stepping back into the pattern that nearly destroyed you. But maybe it's time. Maybe avoiding the bench forever is its own kind of obsession, its own kind of unhealthy fixation. Maybe true recovery means being able to sit there briefly, casually, without it triggering the old compulsions? Maybe you need to prove to yourself, and to Rory Mac, watching from between moments, that you've truly changed, that you can sit on that bench without losing yourself, that the bench is just a bench, not a portal to frozen time. Wilmar, you say carefully, I'm going to sit on that bench for a few minutes. You keep working on your journal entry. I'll be right there if you need. Me? Wilmar barely looks up, absorbed in his drawing. You walk slowly to the bench, your heart pounding, your hands trembling. It's just a bench. It's just wood and space to sit. It can only have power over you if you give it power. You sit. The wood is familiar beneath you, worn into the contours you remember from decades of use. The view of the pool spreads before you. Moorhens in the reeds, the water-reflecting sky, the place where the black stork stood just minutes ago. Everything is exactly as you remember it, except you're different. You're not here alone, drowning in observation. You're here with Wilmar, teaching rather than just watching. You're here for a few minutes, not hours. You're here as part of an afternoon of shared experience, not instead of living. You sit and nothing happens. Time doesn't freeze. The shadow heron doesn't appear. The birds continue their normal behaviours. The world flows around you at its usual pace, moments becoming minutes, becoming the present, becoming the past in the normal, linear progression that characterises the flowing world. The bench is just a bench. You've reclaimed it, taken back the power it had over you, proven that you can sit here without being pulled into unhealthy patterns. But as you sit, breathing slowly, deliberately, staying present in the flowing world, you sense something. Not visible, not audible, just a presence, a sense of awareness directed at you from spaces you can no longer access. Rory Mac, watching from the frozen moments, proud of you, satisfied by what you've become. You close your eyes and whisper, "Thank you, my friend. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for watching. I promise I'm making your sacrifice worth it. I promise I'm living, really living in the world you gave back to me." No response comes, of course. Rory Mac exists outside sound and speech, outside time and conversation. But you feel an acknowledgement, a warmth, a sense that your message has been received and accepted. You open your eyes. Wilmar is walking toward you, his journal clutched proudly. "I've finished. Do you want to see?" You stand up from the bench easily, naturally, without the sense of being anchored or trapped or pulled toward eternal observation. You've sat there. You've proved you can sit there without danger. And now you're standing up and walking away, choosing to engage with teaching rather than drowning in watching. "I'd love to see," you tell Wilmar, and together you look at his careful drawing of the black stork, his neat handwriting describing the observation. It's not professional quality documentation. It's not comprehensive scientific recording, but it's genuine, enthusiastic, full of wonder and joy. It's perfect. As you walk home with Wilmar that evening, the sun setting behind you, you realise something. You're happy. Not the desperate contentment of the frozen spaces, where all complications fall away because nothing exists except pure observation. But real happiness, the messy, complicated, fully alive happiness of someone engaged with the world, connected to other people, participating in life rather than just documenting it. Rory Mac gave you this, gave you the chance to learn balance, to find the middle path, to discover how to love birdwatching without being consumed by it. And you're finally, truly living in the gift he gave you. The seasons turn. Thursday afternoons with Wilmar continue. Your garden thrives. Your connections in the community deepen. You attend dinners and gatherings. You help neighbours with projects. You live a full Hobbit life that includes birdwatching but isn't defined entirely by it. Sometimes you visit Bywater Pool alone, sitting on the bench for a few minutes, watching birds casually before moving on to other activities. The bench has lost its power to trap you. The pool has lost its ability to pull you out of time. They're just places now. Special places, meaningful places, but not dangerous places. You start keeping brief notes. Again, Not comprehensive documentation, but simple journals recording interesting sightings, unusual behaviours, the kinds of observations that enhance memory without replacing experience. The recording serves the living now, rather than the living serving the recording. Wilmar grows older, more skilled, more knowledgeable. After 2 years of Thursday afternoons, he's genuinely talented at field observation. Other children hear about his lessons and ask to join. You find yourself teaching small groups, never more than 4 or 5 children at a time, always keeping it social and interactive rather than solitary and obsessive. You're a teacher now, not just a watcher. Your identity expands beyond observation to include connection, relationship, the passing on of knowledge in a way that creates community rather than isolation. On a Thursday evening, 5 years after your return from the frozen spaces, you sit in your hobbit hole drinking tea alone. Thursday evenings are still quiet for you. You've never quite found the right way to fill the time that used to belong to tea with Rormak, but the quiet doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels peaceful, reflective, a time to process the day, to rest, to appreciate the life you're living. You think about Rorimak, standing frozen in the spaces between moments, watching you eternally. Is he lonely? Does he regret his choice? Or has he found the same peace in eternal observation that the other watchers have found? You'll never know. The frozen spaces and the flowing world don't communicate beyond the rare letters from elves who understand both, but you choose to believe that Rorimak is content, that watching you live fully, engage deeply, find balance and happiness, that watching this is its own reward for him, that he observes your life with the same love and pride he showed during those 43 years of Thursday teas. You raise your teacup in a quiet toast. To you, Rorimak, to watching together, even though we're in different kinds of time now, to friendship that transcends moments, to sacrifice that enables life. Thank you, my eternal friend. Thank you for watching. The evening deepens, the stars emerge, and somewhere in the spaces between moments, in the frozen time that exists alongside flowing time, Rorimak watches and smiles and is content, because the gift he gave you, the gift of life returned, of balance learned, of watching transformed from obsession into joy, that gift is being used well. You're living fully, engaging deeply, sharing freely. You're exactly what he hoped you would become when he chose to freeze in your place. The watcher has learned to live while watching. The observer has learned to participate while observing. The hobbit who almost lost himself to documentation has found himself again through connection. And in the quiet places between moments, where time breaks and watchers stand eternal, Rorimak observes this transformation with infinite patience and infinite love. Some gifts take years to fully appreciate. Some sacrifices take decades to fully honour. But as you sit in your hobbit hole on a Thursday evening, 5 years after returning from the frozen spaces, you finally understand the full magnitude of what Rorimak gave you. Not just life, not just freedom, but the chance to discover who you could be if you learn to balance your nature with your relationships, your passion with your presence, your watching with your living, the chance to become whole. You've taken that chance. You're living it every day. And though Rorimak can never sit across from you at tea again, though Thursday evenings will never be quite what they were, he's still with you, watching always, proud always, loving always. In the flowing world where time passes and moments end and nothing lasts forever, you've learned that some connections transcend time itself. Some friendships exist beyond the boundaries of normal reality. Some love endures even when one friend is frozen and one flows forward, both somehow still together, still watching, still caring across the impossible distance between moments. The gift has been given, the gift has been received, the gift has been honoured, and in the peaceful quiet of a Thursday evening in the Shire, that's enough. That's everything. You can rest now. Good night.